Welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Chapter 21. Naturally, Kamime is not aware of the matter of Xiangying, who is now using his computer to create a file titled, Pokemon World Setting Encyclopedia. I have to say that this is a very happy job for Kamime, because he needs to recall in his mind, about the setting of Pokemon, and all kinds of Pokemon. First of all, he simply wrote about several large regions of the Pokemon world, such as the Kanto region, the Johto region, the Hoenn region, the Sinnoh region, and the United region. Originally, he wanted to make it more detailed and draw the entire world map directly, but this idea dissipated before it occurred in his mind for 3 seconds. Just kidding, he doesn't have the kind of golden finger that can recall 100% of the time. How can he recall any big map? But fortunately, because Pokemon was also made by the Japanese in the previous life, in terms of place name prototypes, they basically refer to their own region. So in this regard, Kamime thinks that if you hand it over to professional Japanese manga artists, you should be able to come up with a map. And what he mainly needs to do is to figure out the origin of the world in Pokemon, the legend of the mythical beast, in some more detailed but important settings. For example, elf trainer, coordination trainer, elf breeder, elf observer, forest ranger, policeman, nurse and other profession settings. There are also various leagues, the setting of the king, the setting of the villains such as Team Rocket, Team Galaxy, etc. In short, it may take him half a day to finish the series, but fortunately, he has enjoyed it, and has finished these more tedious work. And now Xiangming is trying his best to draw those classic divine beasts, other ordinary Pokemon. He can accept the plausibility with his previous life. But these divine beasts, he still hopes to keep the appearance in his heart. I've finished painting the 3 divine birds, and then I've finished painting this lei gong in my hand, and the 3 holy beasts are almost there, so let's draw the phoenix next. In the quiet room, the voice of Kamime talking to himself sounded from time to time. Well, he was in a state of excitement now, and finally turned into a deep sigh. Why don't I, a traverser, have a system that can summon Pokemon? On the other hand, Japan's MTV Music Network also began to vigorously promote Xiangming's hero. At this time, anyone who clicked on the homepage of the website could see a handsome little boy with blonde hair for the first time, and 2 lines of lightning-shaped golden artistic words. Anyone can be hero, 15-year-old Xiangming Electric. The latest installment since Only-My-Railgun. I have to say that MTV Music Network does have a huge influence in the music circle in Japan, and it can make hundreds of thousands of people know a musician who was like a passerby before. Of course, Xiangming is not unfamous, at least many people have heard of it, and even bought that super electromagnetic cannon. So with the mentality that people who make good songs should still be able to make good songs, people began to click on Xiangming's personal page and prepare to listen to this hero. But as soon as they entered the personal page, they saw the personal testimonial that Xiangming had written a long time ago. I am about to be admitted to the hero department of Xiangying University. This hero is given to myself, to the school, to the teachers, to the students, and to all those who want to work hard and are working hard. You can actually be heroes. At this moment, everyone knows that this 15-year-old blonde boy is still Xiangying's candidate this year, which makes many people interested in Xiangming. Do you want to take the Xiangying test too? A purple-haired girl who lives in a small town in Shizuoka Prefecture was a little surprised to see what she said on the LCD screen, because she also passed Xiangying's written exam, so they are likely to meet in Xiangying. Great! Since she heard the super electromagnetic cannon a few years ago, she has been very impressed and appreciative of Xiangming, who is about the same age as herself, and can really create such a beautiful song. Because she is also a lover of rock and roll, and can even be called an audiophile. Let's take a look around her: electric guitar, electronic keyboard, drum kit, big stereo, and a nice girl room is turned into an instrument room. Even her parents, in order not to affect the neighbors, spent a lot of money to replace the top and bottom of this room with high-end soundproof walls. Well, very rich. At this time, the prelude to Hero suddenly sounded, and it was very loud. Well, the girl turned the sound to the maximum, and it was also a 3D surround sound effect. If she doesn't listen to it like this, she feels uncomfortable. Of course, she needs to listen to headphones when she is away. Wow, that's a good rhythm. The girl's head started to sway to the rhythm of the drum kit, and she loved this type of music. Pretend to be stubborn and start getting carried away. Everything's important, throw it all aside. Torture yourself like a prisoner. Say goodbye to yourself like this. Hearing this, the girl was a little surprised. Isn't the title of the song, Hero? How is this completely irrelevant to the hero? But she didn't say anything, feeling that the chorus part should point out the theme. And again, she thinks it's a great rhythm, it's very exciting. What should I do if I am afraid of the night? What should I do if I'm scared of that guy? If you stand still, you will only stop. The girl doesn't have any ideas about this lyric, because she has a cheerful personality, and she really doesn't dare to go out at night. As for being bullied or something, well, there seem to be a lot of little boys she has cried. However, among other young people, there are many experiences of being afraid of the dark when they were young, and of course more of them are bullied at school. Well, it can be said that this is very common. For example, Midoriya Izuku, who also lives in Shizuoka Prefecture, was awakened on time by the mobile phone alarm clock when he stayed up all night at the seaside park last night. I was tired and just about to get out of bed to wash, eat, and then rest until 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and then go to clean up the waste in the evening, when I suddenly saw the news pushed by the Japanese MTV app. That's right, it's the recommendation of Heroes. Because he has been looking forward to Heroes since he was a child, he likes to listen to any songs about heroes, but he is not obsessed with them, just listening to the excitement of holding on to his dreams, and then what to do. But at this moment, when Midoriya heard the lyrics, he was silent. Because he knows the saying, what should I do if I'm scared? A man should be strong for others. Grit your teeth and make up your mind to stay the course. It's okay to fall, just get up again. That's all, if you can do it. It's a hero. Izuhisa Midoriya's heart was instantly ignited by this lyric, and he felt that the blood in his body began to boil. Especially the pain and exhaustion of the past 10 months, it seemed to be swept away at this moment. Grit your teeth. Make up your mind to stay the course. That's how it should be. Can't give up. At this time, the whole song has come to an end, and the final climax has finally arrived. A man should be strong for others. Compete with each other and do your best. It's okay to cry, just have fun again. That's all, if you can do it. It's a hero. Drink. Midoriya picked up his phone, then pushed open the door and walked to the kitchen. What am I doing? How can I be so slack? Am I not going to be a hero like Olmut? After eating, go to Seaside Park and continue to clean up the waste. By the way, this song is going to be looped 100 times in a single today. 100 times. On the other hand, the purple-haired girl was hearing. It's the same with girls, you can't start just by looking at it. This is the right thing to do, as long as you have the courage to say it. That's all, if you can do it. It's a hero, she burst out laughing, staring at the high-precision poster that Shengming had just taken, and whispered. Sounds like you're pretty good at chasing girls. Hopefully you'll be able to do better than you say when we meet, hehehe. After listening to the song, she did not choose to listen to it again, but suddenly stood up and picked up her electric guitar and began to play it smoothly. It's a prelude to Heroes. She only listened to it once, and memorized the tune of this song. The musical talent is simply terrifying. Opening parenthesis. Chapter 22. Heroes, is on fire, on fire. Shengming Electric is also on fire, a small fire, but it can be regarded as having a certain reputation in Japan, especially in the small area of Saitama Prefecture. It is also a star. Seeing that there were already many teenagers and girls in the subway, they began to hold mobile phone cameras at him. Anyway, you're really a star, I really didn't see it at all before. Glancing at the girls who were excited not far away, and wanted to come but didn't dare to come, Taijie said to Shengming beside him with some envy. He argues about the romance of young people. No matter how rough he is, no matter how arrogant he is, he will still have a certain interest and longing for beautiful girls. By the way, you really don't pay attention to MTV Japan at all. Shengming kept a handsome smile as he beckoned to a few middle school girls over there, and then signed their names and posed for a photo amid the soft admiration. Well, after all, the ambition is to become a big star, and it's good to cultivate fans from a young age, but this has also attracted the attention of some other adults who don't know him well. Well, being watched all the time seems to be a compulsory course as a star, so it's good to get used to it. Just get used to it. Ah, you say listen to the song. I used to listen to some, but now I don't. Quote. Because of the fragrance of the girl who kept wandering between his noses, Taijie, the big boy, rubbed the bridge of his nose with his fingers a little uncomfortably. The girls excitedly took photos of themselves with the stars for the first time, chattered back to their seats in disgust, glancing at Shangming from time to time, and then covering their mouths and snickering. In the face of this, Shangming still kept smiling and asked, "Oh, what have you been busy with lately?" "I'm not practicing the trick you told me, shaving. As soon as I got home that day, I started to practice walking quickly and, in the garden of my apartment." But before Tai Jie finished speaking, Shangming frowned and interrupted, "Didn't I tell you, shaving is not something you can practice in a short period of time, so don't put all your energy into it." Quote, "I know, you listen to me first." Tetsu pursed his lips and replied, "Of course I understand this principle, so I didn't just practice this, I already signed up for a judo gym 2 days ago, and now I'm learning judo with Mr. Daimon." Judo. At this time, Shangming was stunned. He glanced at Tai Jie up and down, and then said meaningfully, "I personally think that with your character and your nature, you should practice karate or the 8 extremes of the Celestial Empire." Quote, huh. Taizahan smiled, but did not waver in the judo he practiced because of his words. "But I like judo a lot, the kind of various throwing and throwing actions is indeed very handsome." Of course, he won't say that he is in a situation where he is being thrown and thrown every day, but he believes that he will be able to fall soon. "When the time comes, I'll find Shangming and try it." "Well, if you like it." Quote, Shangming is just talking, after all, like Tai Jie's type. The first feeling is that the gang body technique is more suitable, but everyone has their own choice, and he can only wish Tai Jie a small success as soon as possible. Having said that, today is February 26th, so the Shinkansen they are riding on is heading at full speed to Yue High School in the Shizuoka Prefecture area. Because the destination is a bit far from Saitama City, even the Shinkansen takes nearly an hour, so Kaminari recommends his new song to Tetsutsu. He felt that Tai Jie would like this type of song. Sure enough, as soon as he finished listening, he was pleasantly surprised to grab the headphones and loop them. Shangming guessed correctly, he liked this kind of rock that contains blood, struggle, and fighting spirit. However, he didn't say much about the super electromagnetic cannon. Well, it's a personal hobby, and you can't force it. In this way, 2 15-year-old boys, one listening to the song alone, the other chatting with the girls in the car, both happily approached Xiangying. "Well, I won't talk about the complicated eyes that Tai Jie skimmed from time to time at that time. 1 hour equals 60 minutes equals 3,600 seconds, and 3,600 seconds equals." In short, this period of time passed quietly, and the two Saitama duo, Kamime and Tetsutsu, finally stepped off the Shinkansen. But Shangming is not without gain. Well, there are 3 more female fans in his line. It's 8:25 a.m., 35 minutes before the test starts, and according to the location map, the school is not far from the subway station, and the distance data shows that it will take 6 minutes. So the two of them didn't mean to hurry at all, but walked towards Xiangying while looking at the street environment in Shizuoka. On the way, Shangming also found that there were many students wearing various middle school uniforms, walking the same day and direction as them. Obviously they should also be candidates who went to Xiangying. Well, it's all competitors. By the way, Shangming and Tai Jie were also wearing their original middle school uniforms at this time, which was Xiangying's request, and he should think that students should be like students. This made Shangming, who thought that he would not have the opportunity to wear the school uniform again, a little happy. After all, it is impossible to say that there is no emotion in 3 years. It's here. Quote, soon Kaminari and Tetsutsu, along with the surrounding candidates from all over Japan, saw the gate that had only been seen on TV before. Xiangying Protective Wall. A huge gate made of a heavy mysterious alloy. According to the internet, even if the main battle tank came over, it would not be able to smash it head-on. At this time, the gate was open to them, and the words, Xiangying High School, and entrance test venue, were hung on the right side. Naturally, there were also candidates who arrived before them. Either one entered silently, or several people entered in pairs. In short, the atmosphere seemed more depressing. It's about to start, the big exam with an admission ratio of 300 to 1. When Shangming stepped over the Xiangying Protective Wall, and stepped on the ground of Xiangying in the real sense, to be honest, even with his adult soul, he began to get a little nervous. I heard that there are more than 1,000 candidates, and only 40 people are admitted. Tai Jie thought in his heart with a tense face. In front of them, there were 3 more red doors, but only the red door with the word 2 written in the middle was open, and from the side of the sign was hung on the side, and inside was the test explanation venue. Just as Shangming and Tai Jie were about to pass, a thick and unpleasant voice suddenly came from behind them. "Get out of the way. Don't get in my way, or I'll kill you." Such an arrogant word is very harsh in this quiet environment, so Shangming and Tetsuzel also follow the current around them and look behind them casually. But in the next second, everyone turned their heads silently. What should they do? Well, it was just a greeting between acquaintances, although this way was a little strange. Naturally, the same was true for Shangming, but somehow, he subconsciously glanced at the green-haired boy who looked extremely flustered because he was being greeted. "Let's go, Shangming." Tai Jie pursed his lips boringly. He doesn't like this kind of cowardly guy. He will be like that if he is intimidated. What kind of professional hero should he be? "Well, let's go." Quote. Kamime nodded, but there was always a strange feeling. Is it because you are nervous about the upcoming exam? But just as Shangming and Tai Jie had just walked up the stairs in front of the red door, a girl's voice suddenly came from behind them. Shangming Electric. Opening parenthesis. Chapter 23. Huh. This voice. It sounded pretty good, so Shangming turned around again, and Tai Jie, who had his hands in his trouser pockets next to him, had to stop to look at the person who came. Girl. It's a girl again. Tai Jie's expression instantly stiffened. Is it really so good to be a star? There are girls everywhere called. Sure enough, I really met it here. I saw the short-haired purple girl walking over quickly, and then looked up and down without shyness, as if she was verifying something. Shangming habitually showed a handsome smile and said, "Hello, I'm Shangming Electric, what about you?" Since the other party appears here, he must be a candidate this time, and he may even be a classmate in the future, so naturally he can't play a star and play it cold and disdainful. He's not that character either. My name is Shangshang Erlang, and I am also a candidate for the hero subject this time, so I will give me a lot of advice in the future, especially in rock and roll. I saw that this girl was very bold, and she directly stretched out her right hand to shake hands with Shangming, and she was very confident in her candidate results in her words. Ah, good. Since the other party asked, Shangming naturally would not refuse. Besides, who would refuse to shake the hand of a young girl? I'm afraid it's not a lonely child. Well, sure enough, it was as soft as imagined. He. Shangming chuckled in his heart, but there was no hesitation in his movements, and he took the initiative to let go after shaking hands. Well, there's only 10 minutes left until the briefing session starts. At this time, Tai Jie on the side reminded expressionlessly. He said that he was a person with a serious sense of time, not because of other ideas. Who is this? Cool Shangshang tilted her head to look at Tai Jie, and the slender fingers of her right hand pinched the headphone jack on her ear intentionally or unintentionally. If you look closely, the top of her headphone jack is actually connected to her earlobe, which means that it is not an item at all, but her own organ. Is that her personality? It seems to be her vocal ability. Quote. Shangming silently remembered in his heart, and at the same time, while taking the lead and continuing to step on the ladder, he was about to introduce his friends to the girl, but this time Tai Jie was very tough. Tetsu J. Che Tai, I'm Shangming's friend, I'm the best hardcore professional hero in the future. Ah, hello. Quote. Shangshang was stunned for a moment by such a manly self-introduction, but soon showed a straightforward smile. Tai Jie's character is really annoying. In this way, Shangming and the others changed from two people to a trio, and then stepped into the open number 2 red door under the leadership of Shangming. It's nice to talk to girls so easily. Midoriya in the back looked at Shangming's back and thought with some envy. He had just met a girl, but he only heard what the other party said, but he didn't say anything back. Although he was very excited to have a girl talking to him, he always had some regrets in his heart, so he was indeed very envious when he saw where Shangming was talking and laughing with girls. At this time, he remembered a lyric in the song, Hero, that had been circulating in the past 2 days. It's the same with girls, you can't start just by looking at it. It's the right thing to do, if you have the courage to say it. Courage. Quote. Midoriya's eyes drooped slightly, but his hands clenched unexpectedly. 10 minutes later, in the spacious lecture hall, the briefing session for the exam officially began, and was presided over by Mr. Present, a famous Japanese DJ and a professional hero of the top sound department. Behind him was a huge electronic screen, and the content on the screen was very simple, just a large Shangying school emblem, and all the students remembered the logo deeply for the first time. Listeners, welcome to my live broadcast. Everybody say hey. The tone of the microphone is very interesting, with a strong rap style, and it sounds like an authentic black man speaking in Japanese. But that's also his characteristic, and the students who are familiar with him at the scene are obviously a little excited to hear the voice live. For example, the Green Valley teenager. Interestingly, these students were still nervous, so none of them responded to the microphone interaction. Well, there was silence. Isn't it funny that the corners of Kamina's mouth curled up? Especially when the teacher complained awkwardly that he was bored, it made Shangming feel that this relaxation program was really good. However, Taijie and Erlang, who were sitting on either side of him, were obviously much more nervous than him, and they kept silent with their lips pursed as soon as they entered this hall. So, listeners, I'm going to give you a concise outline of the practical test. Although the candidates were not very cooperative, the microphone with the heart of a top star instantly packed up his mood and began to perform his work this time. But maybe subconsciously, he didn't take the previous lesson at all, and wanted to interact with him after the words. Are you ready? Be quiet. The air was quiet again, and the audience may have been the Green Valley boy, who was excited by the host of the microphone, who had listened to the microphone broadcast every week since he was a child, and it could be said that he admired each other quite a lot. Just like it was written in the exam points, after the audience is here, they will participate in a 10-minute mock block acting. You can bring anything with you, and after I'm done, you can go to your designated theater venue. At this time, the three Shangming who had already obtained the admission ticket suddenly found that several of them were actually in the C examination room, which made Taijie and Erlang both happy and worried. After all, they are the most direct competitors in the same exam. It's just that Shangming's focus is different from his, and he is thinking about the rules that the microphone just said, because he thinks that only by understanding the rules of the exam can he do well in this super test. The difficulty of being selected from more than 1,000 people to the list of 40 is no joke. At this time, as the microphone continued to explain, images began to appear on the big screen. There are 3 types of imaginary enemies in each exercise field, and there are a large number of imaginary enemies, and there are corresponding scores according to their respective difficulty of attacking. Use your personality to defeat the imaginary enemy and earn points. That's your goal, the listeners. The imaginary enemy turned out to be a robot. Shangming looked at the shape of the black shadow on the screen and saw its essence at a glance, which made his mood instantly relax. If it was a robot. Hey, hey, hey. Below, I saw the microphone very handsomely turn and point forward, warning. Of course, it is strictly forbidden to attack others and act against the spirit of heroism. Heroic spirit. Maybe other people didn't have any thoughts about this sentence, but it was very different in Shangming's ears, and he seemed to understand the meaning of this exam a little. Coupled with the nature of Shangying University, he has 80% confidence in his guess, but something missing. I have a question, can I bring it up? At this moment, a person suddenly raised his hand in the exam ahead, and soon the overhead light hit him, and then it was a farce that wasted everyone's time. This made Shangming frown a little, because the tall man who exuded the aura of a class cadre had already disturbed his thinking a little, and he also felt that his question was simply self-righteous. How could Shangying have such a big loophole? Sure enough, the microphone casually thanked him for his question, and then continued to explain. The 4th type of enemy is 0 points, in other words, the ones who interfere with you. There will be such a mechanism that is rampage in every venue, and although it is not impossible to defeat, even if it is defeated, it is meaningless. I advise listeners to avoid it smartly. This is it. Shangming's eyes suddenly lit up, and he now had 90% confidence in the guess in his heart. This exam routine, it's a little old. Quote, opening parenthesis. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 24. The duration of the briefing was very short, which made Kamime also have some experience of the heroic style of pursuing efficiency. Soon after changing into the civilian clothes they had brought, they came to the playground behind Shangying University, where dozens of buses were already ready. Subsequently, all the candidates followed the number on the admission ticket to find the bus corresponding to the exercise venue and prepared to go to Shangying's simulated community. During the whole process, there was no one to maintain order, but there were no accidents, and all the candidates lined up very well. No one cut in line, no one spoke, they were all silently doing what they had to do. According to the description, each simulated community is equivalent to 4 blocks, and similar beings have 7. of them. With such a large area, it is naturally impossible to be in the city. This also made Kamime understand why Yue's school site was located here in Shizuoka Prefecture. In the entire area around Tokyo, only Shizuoka Prefecture has a large number of suburbs. As a direct result, they need to take this bus with a capacity of 40 people, and it takes more than 40 minutes to get there. However, Shengming, who was sitting with Erlang, found that since the bus left Shangying University, the candidates in the car had obviously become cheerful. They begin to get to know each other, and then get to know each other's personalities, and talk to each other about their nervousness, or passionately express their dreams of being professional heroes. Well, in general, quite lively. This also made many more introverted candidates gradually relax, no longer maintain expressionless faces, and began to listen to other people's words curiously. And it also made Shengming's mood much better, and sure enough, he still liked this lively atmosphere. Kamime, is there anything special about these gloves you're wearing? At this time, Erlang, who had just relaxed after listening to a song, curiously pointed to the glove on Shengming's right hand, because it was inlaid with something similar to blue crystal, so it gave people a very unusual feeling. These words also attracted Tai Jie, who was sitting in the front, and he had noticed the metal gloves on it in Shangying's locker room before. But at the time, he just thought it was just an ornament, and it was used by this guy Shengming to hold that or something. Otherwise, who would make a big crystal in a glove? Seriously, though, the whole design of the glove is really handsome. Well, it's a piece of equipment that's important to me. He raised his right hand slightly and looked at his gloves as he spoke. This is the first thing his father ordered at Island, at a large price since he knew that he was going to take the Shangying exam, and it took more than 3 months during the period. Originally, it was a pity that my father was too late to use it this time, but fortunately, at 8 o'clock last night, the courier sent it over. It can be said that this glove contains his father's strong expectations and blessings for him. Equipment. Erlang and Tai Jie glanced at each other, and then put their eyes on Shengming's gloves again, especially the round crystal, which looked very bright under the sunlight outside the window. Well, the whole of this glove is made of a lighter alloy, but it's not very hard, and it can only be used to block fruit knives or something. Quote. However, this alloy has excellent electrical conductivity. For example, with the same electric light fist, my consumption can be saved by about 20%. Quote. Korlang and Tetsu were more curious, the crystal-like thing on the back of the glove. As for this, I don't know what it's made of, only that it's a high-tech battery, and it's said to have been charged inside, enough power for 3 years. Quote. Kamime smiled. Because my personality is to store electricity in my body and then release it freely through my body, with this glove, I can recharge myself at any time. Quote. As for the shape of the gloves, it is a design draft provided by myself. After all, it will be used for a long time in the future, of course, it must be in line with my own heart. Quote. Hearing that this glove was ordered at the famous artificial technology island, not to mention Erlang and Tai Jie, all the candidates around who heard this were secretly surprised. This also makes them regard Shengming as their biggest competitor, not to mention the others. In terms of basic equipment, Shengming has already blown them up several levels. But Denaki didn't care, since he knew that the opponent in this test was a group of robots. He became very relaxed, but at the same time, he also discovered a big problem in this test. But now he didn't want to say it, because that would be too arrogant. 40 minutes later, dozens of buses began to diverge, heading in 7 different directions, and soon the bus they were in stopped in front of a large iron gate more than 10 meters high. There was also a bus that followed closely behind and also stopped after driving to the side. The destination of this exam has arrived. At this time, the driver, who was originally responsible for driving, suddenly began to take on the responsibility of leading the team, asking them to get out of the car in an orderly manner, and the practical skills test will officially start in 10 minutes. Naturally, the candidates had no opinion, but the atmosphere became tense again. Because people decompress differently when faced with stress, the scene becomes interesting. Some people start to take deep breaths, some people quietly look at the blue sky, and some people start to do push-ups on the ground. Among the 3 Shengming, Erlang listened to the music again, because the volume played was a little loud. Shengming was very sensitive to find out that she was listening to her own super electromagnetic cannon. As for Tai Jie, he closed his eyes and inexplicably stepped on the spot, and the frequency of his steps gradually increased. And Kamina is also doing his own preparations, but his preparation is very inconspicuous compared to the others, and he is using electricity to stimulate the muscles of his body. At this moment, the huge iron gate opened silently. There was really no sound at all, except for some candidates who were staring at the door, and the other people who were making various preparations for decompression were completely unaware of this. Even the examinees who found the door open were stunned by the lack of hints. The race is on. A voice suddenly sounded, and at the same time, Tai Jie and Erlang's shoulders were patted lightly, and the next second, the crackling electricity was entwined, and they turned into a golden figure and rushed into the examination room first. He didn't deliberately wait for the two of them, because the exam had already begun, and from now on they would be competitors, and reminding them that it would be considered a friendship. As for the rest, let's wait until he guarantees his score first and is qualified enough. If you are poor, you will be good to yourself, and if you are good, you will help the world, which is a major characteristic of his life. Take care of yourself first, and then do your best to help your friends when you have the spare energy. With Shang Ming's movements, everyone reacted almost at the same time, watching Shang Ming's back pour into the examination room, and then randomly choose a direction to disperse according to their preferences. At this time, the first so-called imaginary enemy appeared in front of Shang Ming, who took the lead. A humanoid robot that relies on two wheels and has a pair of dark green steel arms, with a camera device on its head, flashes a bright red light the moment it sees Shang Ming. Target correction. Quote. Kill. Crackle. The robot with 1 point rolled its wheels, sprinting and performing a high-speed movement. Shang Ming, and just as it was about to turn around and attack Shang Ming again, a chaotic golden current appeared on the surface of the fuselage, and its wheels stopped spinning. Boom. The red light on its head dimmed in the next second, and Shang Ming's figure had already walked away. It was obvious that he had expected this result a long time ago, so he had no intention of looking back at all. Sure enough, it's the same as I thought, so it seems that I can help Tai Jie and them, soon. Opening parenthesis. Chapter 25. There's a big problem with this exam. Quote. Shang Ming occupied an entire street with sparks and lightning all the way, and the other candidates who tried to approach here didn't hold on for even 10 seconds, and left with their faces black. Because they found out that if they didn't have a pure speed personality, it would be impossible to grab the top hit. If it takes at least 3 or 4 seconds for others to solve a robot, then Kamime may die for a second, because he doesn't need to use his hands at all, he just needs to wipe his clothes as he skims over them. However, these children, who are on average 15 years old, obviously didn't realize that Shang Ming's seemingly random movements actually contained a certain amount of technical content. In fact, Shang Ming didn't touch them randomly, but swept precisely past the core of the robots, which is the red light in front of each robot. Because that's where it's clear that the control center of these robots is located. Therefore, while Naming needs to quickly dodge their ferocious attacks, he also needs to accurately dodge through the gaps in the action, and let the current on his body touch there, and finally burn the power supply equipment inside. However, because the speed of the high-speed movement is slightly faster, the candidates did not realize this, and only saw that Shang Ming easily harvested one score after another with the advantage of personality and speed. Principal Nezu, who was invigilated by the distant Shangying High School, and the heroic teachers, including Olmet, continued to applaud Kamime's performance. The control of their personality, their judgment of their target movements, and their calmness when moving at high speeds all made them understand the excellence of Kamime. 9 years of lonely efforts will begin to bloom from today belongs to the magnificent flowers of Shangming Electric alone. God rewards diligence, the ancients do not deceive me. But Shang Ming, who was in the examination room, had some opinions about Shangying's exam this time. This exam, it's not fair. At this point, 4 minutes had passed since the exam, but Shangming had already cleared an entire street. Surrounded by electricity, he stood on a tall building in the face of the fierce wind generated by the continuous explosion, the blue gems on his black and white gloves shining brightly under the flickering electric light in the bright sun. He was looking for Tai Jie and Erlang, and at the same time he was thinking about this exam in his heart. The purpose of this exam should be to make them temporarily a professional hero against these enemies, who destroy towns, but the biggest problem is that these enemies were all robots. In this way, the difficulty of the test will be completely different according to the individual ability of each candidate. He himself is the biggest proof of this thesis, even if he didn't move at high speed. this time, he could easily destroy these robots with the power of electricity. It's just a difference in efficiency, but it can still be passed logically. But what if it's a person who has a personality that has no power against robots but can be powerful against biological targets? There is no way he will pass this exam. That's right, if he was reborn with a personality similar to the Sharingan, then he had no hope of passing this exam in front of him with a kaleidoscope Sharingan. Then he can only focus on cultivating physical arts, and then get a knife to become a rampaging warrior. But fortunately, Taijie and Erlang don't have this aspect of their personality. Just when Shang Ming was thinking happily, he finally saw Taijie and them, and the two of them actually turned on the team mode. One person attracted the attention of the robot head-on, and the other person took the opportunity to stick the headphone plug on. If someone wants to come and grab it, Erlang will stick the plug into the ground and block the opponent by shaking the ground, buying Taijie enough time to smash the score with one punch. Then the two swapped positions, and Taijie was responsible for blocking the way with his steel body. In short, the cooperation can be said to be quite tacit. But because neither of them is a speed type, and they share the harvest, the efficiency is lower. But their cooperation also made Xiangying's teachers notice the two. Crackle. Seeing this, a golden current appeared on Shang Ming's body again, and then he ran flexibly between the roofs of the buildings at a very fast speed, and now it was time for him to help the world. Soon, under the watchful eyes of the candidates in this block, Shangming rushed to Erlang in their place with an extremely arrogant attitude, which also made the candidates who were squeezed out by Shangming on the previous street dissatisfied. They think that Shangming is too greedy, and it is not enough to occupy a street, and they come here to rob them. It's just too deceitful. Kamiaki. At this time, the two of them, who had just solved a 3-point problem, also found Shangming approaching, which made their faces instantly show a look of surprise. Let's stop talking, keep up with me. After Shang Ming came to Erlang's side, he slapped Erlang and Taijie on each of them without saying a word, and in the next second, a beating golden current appeared on the two of them, and temporarily activated their bodies. It's move at high speed. Taijie felt his body become light in an instant with a shocked face, and Erlang's expression was similar, but they were not stupid. They immediately understood what Shangming meant, and directly set off to catch up with Shangming, who had already run out. The surrounding candidates watched in amazement as the three of them left at high speed. Hey, it's too much. And bring people a buff. It's open. The candidates who reacted immediately began to cry and howl with jealousy, and even accused Shangming of fouling with some excitement. But after a long time, I didn't see any indication from Xiangying. Although the invigilators were also surprised by Shangming's approach, after careful study, it was found that he did not violate the rules. Because the rule is that candidates are not allowed to use their personality to attack others, but it does not say that they are not allowed to use their personality to help other candidates. But then again, who would have expected someone to help their competitors? On the other side, Taijie and Erlang were excited, harvesting the scores that Shangming had left for them in front. This time, instead of burning the core of the robot, Shangming used an electric current to wrap the entire body of the robot, causing it to have the effect of chaotic information transmission and temporarily unable to work correctly. To put it simply, it's a robotic version of reggae, but because it's a mechanical body, it's much easier to use on a human body. Therefore, Taijie and Erlang can be said to be quite easy, as long as they can destroy it before the others with the high-speed movement they get temporarily. Especially the feeling of running fast like the wind made the two people who kept catching up with Shangming's back gradually begin to recognize Shangming's status in their hearts. At this time, the earth suddenly began to shake violently, making all the candidates subconsciously think that there was a major earthquake. No way, who let this be Japan? But the ground quickly returned to calm, but a robot taller than the nearby building appeared in front of Shangming and the others in an extremely shocking way. No, this 0-point volume is too big. Taijie complained in shock with his mouth open. The microphone teacher said before that it's best to avoid this kind of robot. Erlang turned his head to look at the candidates behind him who had already begun to flee. And our score should be enough to pass. No. But at this time, Shangming chose not to retreat. We need to kill this guy. Why? Taijie and Erlang, who were already preparing to run away, looked at Shangming incomprehensibly. Obviously it was pointless to do this. Because Our current temporary status is a professional hero. Kamido looked up at the Zero, who had to destroy the building because of the large size in front of him. I ask you, do you think that if you were a professional hero, you would choose to go free because there is nothing good to be gained when you encounter such an enemy that poses a great threat to the city? This. Taijie and Erlang were silent, and at the same time, the Xiangying teachers, who controlled the overall situation through the monitoring equipment, were also silent because of these words. They didn't expect Shengming's understanding of this exam to be so profound. At the same time, in Area B, the Green Valley boy also wanted to save the girl and began to sprint towards 0 points. I have a solution, but the success rate is only 50%. Kamina turned his head and smiled handsomely. Will you believe me? Opening parenthesis. Chapter 26. Seeing Shang Ming's smile, Erlang was a little overwhelmed, and Taijie on the side stepped on the ground fiercely, then raised his clenched fist and smiled hard. Since you've said so, then, let's do it. I have to say that at this moment, this guy is handsome. Erlang. Shangming touched Tetsuchial's fist with his fist, then smiled and looked at the cool girl. What do you want to do? Erlang said with a pout. This answer made Shangming and Taijie both smile with satisfaction, and from now on they can be regarded as truly agreeing with Erlang. Partner, not just a few words can become a partner, but also have the corresponding pay in action. From this point of view, no matter how beautiful, the existence of blood will also have a certain realistic component. No way, no matter what it is, after all, it is contained in this reality, and what is completely detached from reality should not exist, right? Okay, first thing, Shangming put away his smile and began to focus on this operation, but he actually looked at Erlang first, and then asked something inexplicable. You should have a music player on you, right? At this time, the 0 points giant robot was already less than 60 meters away from them, and the smoke and dust raised by the destruction of the building had begun to drift along the wind. Yes, Erlang said as he looked at Shangming strangely. Only-My-Railgun is played at that moment, then it is set to a single loop, and then it is played out at maximum volume. Said Kamime, naturally. Erlang. Tieja. Thousands of miles away, the Xiangying teachers, who had just been shocked by the situation where the Green Valley boy in Area B destroyed the 0 score with one punch, were also speechless when they heard Shangming's words at this time. 4. Why? Taijie has a big tongue, he really doesn't understand Shangming's routine now. What is the song doing when it is so urgent? Don't you think it's a pity that there is no battle song that shocked the audience at such an exciting moment? Seeing what the two of them wanted to say, Shangming waved his hand directly and said, okay, let's just think it's a little habit of mine, let's talk about what we all need to do. Erlang and Taijie looked at each other speechlessly, and then they didn't bother anymore, quietly listening to Shangming's instructions, and 10 seconds later, the three of them quickly took action. It is worth mentioning that because the high-speed movement on Tetsuji and Erlang disappeared, Shangming also deliberately made up for them another BUFF. It's an insurance policy that guarantees that even if the operation fails, there will be enough motivation to escape from here. Let's go back to the situation of the three people. First of all, while taking off the headphone jack on his ear from the MP3, he slowly approached the 0 score, while setting it according to the strange habit of Shangming. Shangming and Taijie, on the other hand, rushed into a building at a very fast speed under the entanglement of golden electricity, and then ran desperately down the stairs to the top floor. As for the elevator, well, it's not as fast as they are. Shangming, why is the big move you just said only 50%? Taijie asked casually as he climbed the stairs boringly. Because you're so big, I haven't shot your, that big. Taijie fell silent, this sentence sounded wrong. But fortunately, they finally came to the top floor, and there was only a thin iron door in front of them. Knock. Taijie kicked the poor iron door out with a volley, and then the spacious rooftop and the seemingly unstoppable giant robot not far away clearly appeared in front of the two of them. Liberate. Will engrave that dream in the bottom of my heart. Even the future is not hesitant for me to leave behind. Ignore the pointless, the so-called limit. At this time, the familiar music prelude and uplifting lyrics were heard from below, probably because of the distance from the ground and the noise coming from the front, so the volume did not seem so loud. But at this time, Shangming and Tai Jie are still in a state of cell activation throughout their bodies, so under the increase in physical fitness, their hearing has also been strengthened to a certain extent. This allows them to hear the content of the song more clearly, and the happiest of them is, of course, Shangming, the treatment of those animation protagonists in the previous life, and I finally have the opportunity to experience it today. Well, although he has his own BGM. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Driven by the classic Only-My-Railgun, Shangming felt his blood flow speed increase, and the temperature seemed to be gradually warming. Well, it's just a delusion of excitement. It's time to get started, Tetsu-J. Understood. With a tear, Tai Jie directly activated his personality, and then roughly tore off his upper clothes, and then stood in front of Shangming with a naked steel body. Come on. At the same time, Erlang downstairs was also carrying out her task with a serious face, only to see that she had approached a rather dangerous position, and the debris and broken bricks from above kept falling on the surrounding ground, making a terrible rumbling sound. But in the face of all this, the Erlang, who was also wrapped with golden electricity on his body, did not show a trace of panic and fear on his face, but tightened his face, and while lengthening the personality, headphone jack, on his ear, he seriously inserted it into the ground in front of him. In the next second, in the fast-paced music and singing, the personality ability is directly activated, and the heartbeat sound that has been amplified more than 10 times is converted into a surging substantive sound wave through the headphone jack, and then transmitted into the ground one by one. Click click, boom, quote dot. It's cracked. It's all cracked. The fan-shaped area within a range of tens of meters in front of Erlang has been completely destroyed at this moment, and the originally neat and flat cement floor has been completely reduced to a rocky hill at this time. It's not enough. Erlang knew that his task was to destroy the ground as much as possible, trying to slow down the robot's approach, and buy them as much time as possible to prepare for the upstairs. So at the risk of being injured, she directly dodged the attack of the quickstone at the speed of high-speed movement, and forcibly advanced her position by 10 meters. At this location, there was only a distance of less than 30 meters between her and the giant robot, which also made Xiangying's teachers nervous, and now the restoration girl teacher has gone to Area B. Once Erlang is also seriously injured, then she will probably not get the most timely treatment. There are 3 minutes left in the exam. The sound of the microphone in the exam room came from nowhere again, but at this time, Only-My-Railgun was also playing to the climax. Looking. The Blitz loop this planet to search way. Lightning bolts orbiting the entire planet trying to find a way out. Only-My-Railgun can shoot it. Right now. The sparkling electric light surrounding the body at the speed of light seems to tell an extremely real premonition. At this moment, a thick beam of light shining with dazzling golden light burst out from the roof of the building, and then sounded in the ears, under the gaze of the Xiangying teachers and all the candidates in Area C who had already run into the distance, and in the blink of an eye, it slammed on the top of the giant robot that represented 0 points and meaninglessness. The powerful penetrating power made the steel skin on its body like papier-mâché at this moment, and the golden beam of light directly penetrated the entire control center. Super, electrical, magnetic, cannon. Shangming's roar at this moment actually overshadowed the explosion in the destruction of the giant robot, shrouded in fire and lightning, and the blonde hair blown by the wind, making him look very handsome. Well, Tai Jie was really shot out by him. Chapter 27. Quiz. Over. The microphone announcement was made over the radio, followed by a buzz similar to a siren whistle that spread across the 7 analog communities. However, none of the candidates in Area C turned to leave, but looked at the direction of the beam in amazement. The giant robot, which was constantly exploding, was constantly reminding them of what had just happened. By the way, there's also the Super Electromagnetic Cannon song that loops again. In fact, not to mention them, at this time, the teachers within Xiangying were also talking about the scene just now, and most of their attention had been focused on the Green Valley Boy in Area B before, so basically no one knew what that beam was about. But one thing is clear to everyone, the attack just now must have been beyond the ability of normal candidates. Look at the Green Valley Boy in Area B. Although at the cost of his own serious injury, he solved the 0 score with one punch, but it only caused a depression at the top, and the 0 score in the C area was directly penetrated. Think about it, what if that beam was directed at someone? Calm down. At this time, Nezu, who was the headmaster, clapped his palms and said, "Let's see what happened when we look at the return visit." Quote. Then I saw that after a quick operation on the keyboard in front of him, 6 of the dozens of small screens were combined into a whole screen, and then reproduced what Shangming had just done from the perspective of God. A school that actually has satellites, and it seems that there is more than one, well, it can be said that it is very strong. I saw that in the screen, Tai Jie, who had become dark because of the steel all over his body, stood naked in front of Shang Ming, and the torn clothes on the ground around him made the scene look a little wonderful. Judging from Shang Ming's expression, he was very serious now, and I saw him slowly stretch his arms forward, and then flatten them on the sides of Tai Jie. Soon golden currents appeared on it, but these currents were very honest, and there was no phenomenon of fleeing without permission, but they were very obedient and circulated between the arms. This action lasted for nearly 20 seconds, and then a small electric current appeared on Tai Jie's body. That's when a miraculous phenomenon happened. Tai Jie's body began to float slowly, but it was less than 10 centimeters off the ground, and it did not rise beyond the range between the two arms above. At the same time, Tai Jie looked a little nervous and slowly closed his eyes, then raised his arms high, and finally put his palms together. At this moment, he seemed to entrust everything he had to Shangming, giving all the trust of his friends. Tai Jie, who closed his eyes, gradually lay flat in the air from his erection to a humanoid steel cone, pointing at the giant robot in front of him. In the next second, Shangming's eyes suddenly became sharp, and a rolling golden current erupted from his body, and the energy of his current was so strong that just the residual electricity that overflowed paved the rooftop floor within a radius of 10 meters into a dangerous golden yellow. Super, electrical, magnetic, cannon. As soon as Shangming opened his mouth to shout the name, before the sound could reach his ears through the transmission of air, it had already turned into an ultra-high-speed golden beam, and it penetrated through the zero center in an unhindered instant. It wasn't until the huge fuselage exploded that Shangming, who was the initiator, and the Xiangying teachers in front of the screen heard the words he had just shouted. Quote. Principal Nezu, Olmut, and the others fell silent for a while. What did they say in the meeting the other day? Shangming's ability to microcontrol the current cannot be so high. Shangming is far inferior to Yelenanaza and Bang Jiao Jelly in terms of mobility and combat effectiveness. Can those two really fight in a one-on-one situation? Shangming is too mediocre in terms of the amount of knowledge. So how did the trick of electromagnetism come about? This series of rhetorical questions made them not know what to say now. If the punch of the Green Valley boy in Area B just now surprised them at most, then Shangming's side was shocked. Well, it's good, they subconsciously ignored the existence of Tai Jie, no way, who let him be shot out. At this time, standing in the center of the screen, only Shangming was alone. But, what's on his face? And, what kind of action is that? Thumbs up. Is this self-celebration? I saw that in the picture that had been deliberately magnified. Shangming Electric was holding 2 thumbs up with both hands with a very wonderful expression, and then walked back and forth aimlessly. What's the situation? How does it look so much like? Olmut complained with a black line on his face, and to be honest, he was holding himself back to say the word. Nope. I'm Xiangying's teacher now, and I can't use this word to describe a child who is about to become a student of Xiangying. No. What to do? I can't hold back. Looks like an idiot. Quote. At this time, a relatively cold voice came from behind, and for some reason hearing this, Olmut and other teachers sitting in front of the screen suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Then subconsciously looked behind me, and when I saw the person who had just spoken, everyone else except for Olmut showed that it was really you. It's Mr. Aizawa Hisata. This should be the limit of his personality. Quote. But it was obvious that this teacher, who exuded a decadent and indifferent atmosphere, was not joking at all, but was seriously thinking about the situation. After all, judging from the current situation, Shangming Electric will definitely enter Class A of the Hero course, so as a class guide, it is naturally necessary for him to understand the personality of his students. That's right, there is a record in the candidate's information that once Shangming Electric releases more power than he can withstand in a short period of time, then his brain will be temporarily short-circuited. At this time, Principal Nezu, who has a high-performance personality, immediately quickly skimmed through all the student materials he had read before, and then verified Aizawa-sensei's inference. At this time, Shangming on the screen suddenly had a new movement, and I saw that his expression returned to normal, but he seemed to be nervous and glanced around. When he was sure that no one was nearby, he immediately straightened out his clothes and hairstyle, and then slowly walked to the edge of the building in the residual electric light and explosive firelight, as well as the BGM of the fast melody. Finally, I looked up downstairs at the Lang Shangshang above, showing a handsome smile, and a big thumbs, but the temperament is completely different from before. Quote. Olmut. Quote. Principal Nezu. Quote. Aizawa eliminate. At midnight and other heroic teachers. Among the students who are about to welcome in Shangying's hero department, there may be a wonderful young man. Everyone thought with a wry smile in their hearts. Meanwhile, bang, Tai Jie, who had been forgotten by the Shangying teachers, was driven by a strong inertia and smashed his head on the ground in Area B, and then passed out directly in the pit he created. What's even more coincidental is that next to him is the young man Midoriya, who is also in a coma, but the injuries on his hands and feet have fully recovered. Quote. The recovering girl in a white coat stared blankly at the child who had fallen from the sky. What's the situation? Chapter 28. Phew. There was no electric light flickering on his body, and he slowly took the elevator to the downstairs. The environment inside the elevator is quiet, there is no BGM, no explosions, and there is almost no sound except for the gentle mechanical turn. This also provides him with a good environment for thinking. It's not that Kamito doesn't want to maintain a state of high-speed movement, now, and then surrounded by the song of super electromagnetic cannon, handsomely rounds with Erlang directly from outside the building. It's that he can't do it anymore, because the super electromagnetic cannon, that is beyond the normal scope just now, has exhausted the power in his body. But fortunately, the glove on his right hand was trying his best to replenish his power, and the crystal on the back of his hand was emitting a hazy faint blue light. Back to the super electromagnetic cannon. In fact, this move is the strongest move of Shangming now, but before that, the super electromagnetic cannon has been in the small power range of imitating Misaka Makoto, using coins as a medium, and the effective distance is only 50 meters high. As for the reason, in addition to being the same as Makoto Misaka, because the coin is easy to carry, there is also its own absolute control over electromagnetism, only to this extent. Well, Makoto Misaka, who is in another world, must not have this aspect in mind. So once the super electromagnetic cannon is used in a larger medium, it will be difficult to guarantee the success rate, and he said with Tai Jie and Erlang that he was 50% sure, but he was actually running a train with his mouth full. However, even if the super electromagnetic cannon fails, it will only consume its own power, and at the same time, it will not be able to shoot Tetsu out. So Shangming chose to take the risk. Well, the risk of becoming that wonderful state in front of Tai Jie is not to mention, for the time being. As for taking risks, how can you not take any risks if you live for a lifetime? As long as you are prepared to take risks, or the consequences of the risks are within your tolerance, then why not take risks? Now he has succeeded. As the saying goes, high risk often comes with high reward. This reward, in addition to ensuring that the three of Shangming can pass the exam 100% and get the attention of Shangying's teachers, the biggest bonus is that he has a deeper understanding of the super electromagnetic cannon. This is not an understanding that is accumulated by absorbing the knowledge from electromagnetism books, but a great wealth brought to Shangming by pure experience. Although it may not be obvious yet, this experience will certainly be of sufficient help in the future when researching electromagnetic tricks. However, there is also a need to strengthen the knowledge, electromagnetism. Ding! At this time, the elevator finally reached the first floor, and then very rudely interrupted Shangming's thinking, and silently opened the iron door even more coldly, as if silently telling Shangming that it was time for him to leave. Kamiyaki. But at the same time, it made the ears of Shangming, who was extremely worried about Shangming and Tetsuch, successfully meet with Shangming with a smile on his face. Huh. Seeing that Shangming was the only one in the elevator, Erlang looked at Shangming, who walked out of the elevator strangely. Where is Tai Jie? Shangming walked and explained what had just happened, and the ear man next to him didn't know what to say after listening to it, and finally his complicated feelings converged into a sentence. It turned out that the light that had just been shot out. It's Tieja. Quote. Then as soon as he walked out of the building, he stood on the street that had been reduced to ruins, looked at the direction in which Tai Jie flew out, and asked with a frown. Nothing will happen to him, will he? No, it won't. Quote. Shangming shook his head and said. The power generated by the electromagnetic action should have been consumed after the fuselage that penetrated the 0 points, and fortunately, I tried my best now, so I could only let him shoot so far. Quote. Well, think about it, how big the quality gap between the coin and Tieja is, and being able to shoot a coin 50 meters does not mean that it can also shoot Tieja 50 meters away. Next is the power of inertia, but this is no threat to Tai Jie, and this area is full of Xiangying's territory, and someone must have recovered Tai Jie now. Quote. But then again, Tai Jie can complete such a risky action, and if he is a person with other personalities, he may really die. Recycle. Quote. The corners of Erlang's mouth twitched. How could this word sound a little strange, but after hearing that this was Xiangying's territory, because of his trust in Xiangying, the worry about Tai Jie in his heart was not so serious. Soon Shangming and Erlang had already come to the entrance and exit of Area C, which was already full of more or less embarrassed candidates. After all, those robots were not powerless. But as soon as they appeared, they instantly became the opinion of everyone. They actually wanted to ask what was going on with the beam just now, and they also wanted to ask Sha Shengming why they were going to deal with the 0 that would not get any points even if it was solved. The people present are all people who have passed the Xiangying written test, although the fools will not be without, but most of them can think of it, and there must be a reason for this that they don't know. Let's go. Quote. It's a pity that Shengming is a little tired now, so he ignored them at all, and directly took Erlang from the place where the candidates let him out, and slowly stepped out of the huge iron gate. He knew that after leaving this sim community, he would probably never have any actual contact with those in the back of the world. Oh, by the way, if they like to listen to songs, they may be showing off to the people next to them that they have participated in the assessment together with Shengming, while listening to their own hot new songs. The existence of the exam can be said to be the son of the mother of reality, and the so-called friendship first and grade second are just comforts that have no impact on the facts. Out of more than 1,000 people, there are only 40 people, oh wrong, except for those 4 recommended students, only 36 people will be able to walk into the Xiangying protective wall tomorrow wearing Xiangying's school uniform. Shangming silently walked onto the bus, and then closed his eyes in his original position. He was looking forward to what a wonderful experience Xiangying would bring him next. I'm also looking forward to the friends and enemies who will appear in my life next. Kamina, who has watched a lot of anime in his previous life, knows very well that in this kind of world there are distinct justice and villains, as well as their own supernatural powers. Contradictions and conflicts are elements that will never be missing. Although he didn't want to be a pure professional hero, from the moment he chose to be admitted to Xiangying, he had inevitably entered the brink of strife. But that's more to look forward to, isn't it? In that world where superpowers did not exist, Kamina could only fantasize about it again and again, but now he finally has the opportunity to experience it all. And how could it be possible to retreat? Isn't it for these reasons that he gave up 80% of his leisure time and devoted all his energy to studying and exercising? Otherwise, wouldn't it be nice for him to be a superstar who made a fortune by copying songs and anime? But if that's the case, once he or his family encounters the threat of an enemy, what will happen then? Do you want to hold the money you earn by writing songs and comics, and in regret and fear, you are waiting for some professional hero to come and save them? No kidding. In that case, it's better to make yourself stronger, and let yourself have enough strength to protect the people around you. As for the big star, what choice will the child talk about? He wants to go to Ming Electric. Since he has lived a new life, he will try to make his life more exciting. If all this needs to be exchanged for his leisure time, with his sweat and hard work, then change it. He has no regrets about. At the same time, just when the candidates from the major simulation communities took the bus back to Xiangying again, ready to accept their own fate, Xiangying's principal and teachers also began to discuss the quota of Class A of the hero course, because the school rules stipulate that only 40 students will be accepted for each hero course. There are just 20 students in Class A and Class B, but now the question is who will enter Class A and who will enter Class B. They meet the requirements perfectly in terms of assessment results, heroism, teamwork, and personality potential, so there is no need to discuss them. As for Madoratani, well, it doesn't need to be explained. Therefore, the teachers' topics focused on Minoru Minda and Ruiuro Kirishima, the former of whom was at the bottom of the assessment score, and his personality was also biased towards support and control. In Rujiro Kirishima, although the assessment score is very high, his personality almost overlaps with Tetsutsu, and this time his performance is also inferior to Tetsutsu. So the question is, who should be removed from Group A? Chapter 29. At this time, the comprehensive results of this practical test have been counted, and they appear on the big screen of Xiangying at a glance. No 1 Shangming Electric 10350. No 2 Explosion Hao Shengji 07700. No 3 Tetsu J Che Tai 06020. No 4 Ear Lang Shangshang 05320. No 5 Rijiro Kurijima 03935. One of the most amazing things is naturally Shangming. Not only did he reap hundreds of points for his absolute strength, but he was recognized by most of the judges for his excellent heroism and outstanding teamwork, and even gave a symbolic 50 points for unnecessary special assistance. Therefore, the teachers of Xiangying did not mean to discuss Shangming at all. This kid can enter Class A 100%, what else can he say? It's only midnight, and the teacher looks at Shangming's name with interest, and the next time they meet, she wants to see how this kid is going to explain how to deceive herself. It's not a gentleman's job to deceive a woman's heart. Afterwards, the discussion on the division of students in Class A and Class B began. If it was according to the assessment scores, it would have been this Minoru Mineta who entered Class B, but everyone knows that the actual division of the class is not only based on the grades. Quote. As Principal Nezu spoke, he quickly called up Minoru Mineta's information on the screen, as well as the video recording of his exam. Minoru Mineta's personality is simulated picking, and the things on his head that look like big grapes have super stickiness, which is said to stick to people for more than 24 hours, and it has the ability to regenerate quickly. Quote. But if you take too much in a short period of time, you will have a wound and a certain amount of blood will come out. That's what it says. Quote. The microphone whistled, leaned back in the chair casually, and said with a smile, "Tut tut, the personality of the strong control type is really suitable for hero work." Quote. Indeed. Quote. At midnight, the sexy teacher touched her chin charmingly and agreed. Although in the face of high-risk enemies, the hero has the power to seriously injure and even kill the opponent, but capturing as much as possible is the mainstream way to deal with it now, and this kid's personality is very good. Quote. This point of view is quickly endorsed by all the teachers in the audience, and everyone here at this time can be said to be senior professional heroes, so they can think of Minoru Mineta's personality, which has strong operability in many key situations. Therefore, although Minoru Mineta's results are the first from the bottom, no one will put him in Class B, and to put it bluntly, the control personality is a very popular type in the professional hero circle. So do you want to replace this Rijiro Kirishima who overlaps with Tetsutsu's personality? Asked Mr. Vlad, who is the head teacher of Class B of the hero course, and then put forward his own ideas. He is ranked 5th in the assessment this time. Will it not be appropriate to do this? As for the problem of overlapping abilities, I saw that this bloody hero, who has the title of King of Vlad, in Japan, operated the keyboard a few times with a serious face, and called up the information of several other candidates. Isn't this Sand Fuji's personality overlapping with the two of them? There is also this Kuchida Koji. Yi Yintu not only belongs to the bottom of the top 16 places, but also his own personality belongs to the auxiliary type. Quote. Olmut, Principal Nezu and the others groaned, and then the principal looked at Mr. Aizawa, who had been standing silently behind, as the class leader of Class A. What do you think? Quote. Quote. Aizawa squinted his eyes and stared at several candidates on the screen for a moment, and finally a flat voice came out from the white bandage he was wearing around his neck. He already had a decision in his mind. At the same time, the candidates who have returned to Xiangying, with their own complicated feelings, once again passed through the open, Xiangying protective wall, but this time they left. In fact, most of them know that many people may never have the opportunity to return here, and they also know that one of them may be themselves. The reality is that these teenagers and girls, who are on average 15 years old, have to start facing the cruelty of this society. But in their ranks, there was no figure of Shengming and Erlang, because at the moment they were in the internal health room of Xiangying. Of course, it wasn't that they were injured in any way, but because of Tai Jie, who was a missile. Shengming and Erlang looked at Tai Jie who was lying on the bed and was asleep speechlessly. The recovery girl had just told them that Tai Jie was not injured, he was just knocked unconscious. The boy named Midoriya Izuhisa who was sent here with Tetsujie had already left here on his own, and I heard that his injuries were much more serious than Tetsujie's. So what now? Said Erlang chuckled helplessly. Simple. Quote. The corners of Shang Ming's mouth curled, and the index finger of his right hand lightly tapped on Tai Jie's arm, and then a wisp of golden electricity appeared on his fingertips, crackling. It's time to go home. Ah. When the current flowed through his body, Tai Jie opened his eyes suddenly, and at the same time subconsciously steeled, and then looked at them vigilantly. Why are you here? No, where is this? Tai Jie looked at the quilt on his body with a cute face, then looked at the surrounding environment, and finally looked at Shang Ming and Erlang suspiciously. Isn't it an exam? However, there was no danger and the body returned to normal again. The exam is over. Erlang replied with his hands in his pocket. It's over. Tai Jie subconsciously repeated, then walked down from the bed, touched the back of his head and asked, then did we pass? I don't know, the microphone teacher said that the final result will be delivered to our house through the post office. Quote. After speaking, Shang Ming lightly smashed his fist on Tai Jie's chest, and said with a smile, but don't worry, the three of us must be over 9 out of 9. Phew, that's good, it's good to be over. Tai Jie gasped with relief. Okay, hurry up and change the contact information with Erlang, it's time to go home. Quote. As soon as he thought of going home, Kamime thought of taking the Shinkansen for another hour, which made him sigh softly in his heart. His home was a little far away from Xiangying. However, Shang Ming had no idea of renting a house near here because of this. Because he didn't have a relationship with his parents in his previous life, he now cherishes the opportunity to be with his parents very much. Maybe normal people don't feel this way. But every time he eats a hot meal that his mother has carefully prepared, he feels happy from the bottom of his heart. So even for this hot meal, he is willing to spend 2 hours a day on the way to and from school, and the big deal is that he can get a copy of Electromagnetism and study on his own in the car. Later, Shang Ming and Tetsujie separated from Erlang at the gate of Xiangying and went to the underground station again. Tai Jie said with some envy, Erlang, she is so good, it is only 15 minutes from home to Xiangying. Quote. Then are you going to rent a house here? Said casually as he walked. It was okay before, but not now. Quote. Tetsujie made a judo gesture with both hands, and replied seriously, I already like to practice judo with Mr. Daimon, and I will not give up easily for this difficulty. Oh, yes, what a great awakening. Quote. Shang Ming glanced at Tai Jie, who was inexplicably enthusiastic, and asked softly, so, how many tricks have you learned now? Quote. Quote. Tai Jie's body stiffened, and finally looked to the other side in shame. I don't want to talk to you about this. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 30. It was 3 o'clock when Shang Ming and Tetsuol came out of Xiangying, so when Shang Ming entered the house, it was already 4:35, because it was not yet time to eat, so this time he didn't smell the familiar aroma of food. However, Mom and Dad were there, which surprised Shang Ming a little. This shouldn't be the time for you to get off work, right? Shang Ming's father looked at his son proudly and said with a smile, today is the day you go to the Xiangying exam, where do you say I am in the mood to work? At this time, my mother came over and gently took the backpack that Kamiru had used to hold civilian clothes and gloves, and then asked expectantly about the exam. The exam should be fine, I have 9% confidence. Shang Ming said confidently, what is still humble in front of his parents. Ha ha ha. Shang Ming's father was overjoyed, he trusted Shang Ming's words very much. He said no problem, then it must be no problem. By the way, how do you use that glove? Shang Ming's answer made the atmosphere at home relaxed and lively, so Shang Ming's father focused on the gloves, which he spent a lot of money on. Very nice and very smooth when charging. Quote. Shang Ming looked at the electric energy gloves that his mother had put on the coffee table, nodded in recognition of the quality of the gloves, and then added, it would be better if there were a few more small functions. Quote. Oh, what function? For example, the ability to play music and the ability to shoot barbed wire, especially the latter, so that I have the ability to capture remotely. Quote. Dad and Mom glanced at each other, and the barbed wire was slightly able to understand, what is the function of playing music for? However, Shang Ming's father still nodded and said, okay, you find a time to write down your thoughts, and I'll take the time to contact them again to see if I can help with the second modification. Quote. That's great. Shang Ming happily picked up the glove and looked at it, and began to think about what other functions to add to it, but then his father interrupted his train of thought. By the way, one more thing to tell you, your song, Hero, is already the 3rd best-selling song on MTV, and since last night, there have been many phone calls from media and companies. Quote. It seems that son, you are really hot, are you already a big star? The mother looked at Shangming in surprise, her eyes full of love and pride. It shouldn't be that exaggerated, it should still be a song fire nationwide, and people are not popular, right? Shangming looked at his father, he knew these things best. Ha ha ha. Father Shangming laughed heartily, you guessed wrong this time. Huh, didn't you announce that you were about to be admitted to the hero course? Dad took out his mobile phone, then opened the MTV app, and then dialed up to Shangming's page, and handed the phone to Shangming. Maybe it's because of this, so under the huge influence of Xiangying, many people have become extremely interested in you, and the song, Hero, has been given unimaginable fuel for propulsion. The people on MTV told me that once you really get into Xiangying's hero department, and then send the admission letter to the page, then your fame will soar 100%. Finally, Shangming's father's expression became serious. Now it's time for you to make a choice, to strike while the iron is hot, to accept media interviews, and sign advertising contracts from various companies, and officially debut as a 15-year-old Xiangying student. Quote. Still, Kamito understood what his father meant, but he didn't feel any pressure because he had already made a life plan a long time ago. Dad, help me get rid of all the interviews and advertisements, and in the next 3 years, I will devote myself to all of Xiangying's courses, work hard to exercise my personality, and get that hero license. Quote. Shangming's eyes are very flat, completely ignoring the fire opportunity at his fingertips, and his pursuit is not just an ordinary big star. From today on, I have only one identity, that is, a student in Class A of the heroic heroes who likes to sing. Quote. Of course, I always post my daily photos on MTV, and if I have time to write songs, I can also release new songs according to the actual situation. Quote. Hearing this, Shangming's father breathed a sigh of relief in his heart, and looked at his son with appreciative eyes. This child is really different. If this kind of thing is put in another family, it may be a pity that it is a rare opportunity. After all, professional heroes are something or too far away for most people. But for Shangming's father, the debut opportunity or something is just like that. In his opinion, his son is so good, it is a sure thing to become a professional hero. Can entertainment stars compare with professional heroes? Question mark. And with their own economic situation, they don't need 15-year-old Shangming to earn money to support their family, and they are not short of money. And somehow, the company's business has been going surprisingly well recently, and there has been no hindrance at all from the government or the business side. This makes him now full of confidence in his business ability. Okay, I'll refuse everything for you, and you can study in Xiangying with peace of mind. Shangming's father walked up to Shangming, patted him lightly on the shoulder, and said earnestly, do your best to do what you think. Okay, you should be tired too, go back to your room and rest. Quote. In fact, he discovered the difference between Shangming and ordinary children when he was very young, especially in terms of mentality, and many times he suspected that his son actually had an IQ personality. But it also made him very reassured about Shangming. At the same time, my mother also went back to the room to change her coat, and was going to go to the nearby Yude supermarket to buy some fish, meat, or something, and make up for her baby son at night. By the way, Dad, I've sent the general setting of Pokemon to the computer in your office. Shangming, who was just about to enter the house, suddenly said to his father. Oh, is it all right? What good news? Shangming's father, who was already smiling all over his face, became more pleasant when he heard this. What's going on lately? Good things are coming out one after another. I've already found a cartoonist here, so I'll let him start working tomorrow. You've found it, what's his name? Asked Kamime curiously, but he didn't think he could find any famous manga artists. Oh, his name is Junichi Tashi, and he is a young manga artist who has good drawing skills, but can't create a good story. Dad said with some embarrassment. He also tried to find those big cartoonists, but first, people don't look down on the cooperation in this situation, and second, the asking price is too high, so he just wants to come out, and he doesn't want to come out. So I had to find a newcomer cartoonist like Tian Shunyi, and at the same time comfort myself in my heart. Newcomers are also good as newcomers, at least they are vibrant, and the requirements are not high. Sure enough, Shangming said secretly in his heart, but he didn't have any opinion, because he knew how powerful Pokemon was, and it was actually a good thing for his company to pick up a rookie manga artist himself. The next day, on the morning of February 27th, the family of 3 simply finished breakfast, and then Shangming and his mother watched his father go out. Then Mom went back to the kitchen to clean up the table, while Shangming went back to the house and started her own business. Nothing else, he was designing his own hero costume. In fact, after passing Xiangying's written exam before, Xiangying had this request, and he also handed in a simple idea at that time. But at 10 o'clock last night, Xiangying suddenly called, saying that the support company that was originally responsible for making his clothes suddenly chose to hand over the order to Mitsui's support company. And this Mitsui support company, strangely hoping that he would return in the costume idea, asked to write down all his wishes as much as possible. You see, it's amazing that these support companies only take a small part of the design ideas when they make clothes for new students for free, and of course the quality of the fabrics is certainly not to be said. But now don't say that Shangming is stunned, even Xiangying is speculating about Mitsui's thoughts, and some people are even obscene in their hearts. Shangming may be the illegitimate son of a certain boss of the Mitsui consortium. But since he can't figure it out, Shangming doesn't bother with it. Why don't you want the equipment that was sent for free? It has to be cool, and it has to be characteristic. The skateboard seems to be very good, but the wheels underneath are gone. Well, with Mitsui's strength, I should be able to do it, right? There is also the defensive aspect that has to be considered. Chapter 31. On February 28th, the official opening day of Xiangying University, it was half in the morning. After eating the breakfast carefully prepared by his mother, Shangming put on a straight Xiangying school uniform, put on cool electric gloves, and under the gentle gaze of his mother, he decisively pushed open the door of the house and walked out. Shangming's father, on the other hand, has already gone to the underground garage and is ready to personally drive his son to the subway station on this memorable day. Shangming understood his father's feelings, so he didn't feel that it would delay him from going to work, so he refused to do so. Sometimes, following their wishes in this kind of thing can actually make them feel happier and not easily refuse their parents' care. Soon Shangming walked out of his BMW brand black sedan again. No way, the subway station was indeed very close to their home. But judging from Shangming's father's expression, he is really happy now. That's it, Kamiaki. At this time, Tai Jie, who was standing next to the entrance and exit of the subway station, shouted excitedly the moment he saw Shangming. But it's okay if he doesn't scream, and when he calls like this, people nearby who also get up early to go to work or school subconsciously look at him. That's like. Well, it's a little familiar. A girl in a white school uniform with long light blue hair said with some hesitation as she looked at Shangming's face. Stupid. That's Shangming Electric. The girl's companion nudged her in surprise, and then screamed, that heroic hero idol, didn't you listen to Super Electromagnetic Cannon yesterday? Really, I'll look at. The blue-haired girl immediately opened the Japanese MTV app on her mobile phone, and then compared the photo on the screen with the distant Shangming, and the next moment the pink little mouth opened in shock. It's true, he's really that Shangming Electric. We met a star by chance. Immediately afterwards, as if there was a chemical reaction around them, more and more young students recognized Shangming. This is a popular star of the same age as them. Where do you usually have this opportunity to meet? Smack. What are you hesitating about? The teenagers and girls didn't say a word, and took out all kinds of mobile phones and slapped at Shangming. Other office workers around who are unknown and have more time also took a picture curiously, thinking about showing people after a while if they have really met a star. At this time, a musical rhythm familiar to most of the people present appeared. This rhythm was so familiar, even if those adults didn't know Shangming, they had heard this song played on various occasions. Super Electromagnetic Cannon. Well, the English ability of the Japanese is generally not good, and few people will remember the original song title except for real fans, so the Super Electromagnetic Cannon has become a well-known synonym. Kamito habitually showed a standard handsome smile, and then looked curiously at the source of the music, and found that it was from the phone of the black short-haired girl next to the blue-haired girl. Seeing Shangming's gaze move over, the black-haired girl looked extremely excited. She did it on purpose. Yes, she did it on purpose. What's wrong with the deliberate? I saw that the girl was holding a pink mobile phone that was still playing Super Electromagnetic Cannon, and ran to Shangming excitedly, and asked expectantly. Hello, my name is Minami Mizukawa and I am a second-year middle school student. I like your Super Electromagnetic Cannon, so much, can you take a picture with me? Her voice trembled very distinctly, perhaps because of excitement or nervousness, and her words stumbled, but she still made her wish clear in one breath. Well, it is indeed a girl with a very cheerful personality. Look at the blue-haired girl who chased after her, and she didn't dare to speak with a flushed face at this time. It's an honor to be liked by you. Shangming didn't refuse, and agreed very gently, and then added, but I can only take a picture, because I have to go to school like you. Quote. The girl happily agreed, and then grabbed the blue-haired girl's hand, and hugged Shangming left and right, while raising her phone with her left hand to take a picture. But she found that it was difficult to take a good photo because of the distance, which made her a little anxious. Such a rare opportunity, it would be a pity if the photo was not good. Ahem. Quote. At this time, Tai Jie came over and coughed awkwardly. What, why don't I take it for you? You. The black-haired girl hesitated for a moment, but immediately noticed Tai Jie's school uniform and said in surprise, you are also Xiangying. Well, his name is Tai Jie Che Tai, and he is my best friend and classmate. Kamina said with a smile while enjoying the softness and fragrance of the two girls. That's amazing. Meet another future hero. Since this is the case, the girl naturally handed the phone to Tai Jie, and then curled her mouth and laughed. You have to take a good photo. If you take a good photo, we will take another photo with you. Quote. This is a professional hero of the future, who knows if it will become very famous. No, not anymore. Quote. Tai Jie, a rough guy, became so shy in the face of a girl, which made Shangming feel that his little friend was very interesting. Soon the photo was taken, and the girl was also very satisfied, and obeyed the agreement and took another photo with Tetsu Jie, who was flushed with a red face, and after being satisfied, he said hello to the two of them, and set out on the road to school with the blue-haired girl again. Phew. Tai Jie wiped the non-existent cold sweat on his forehead, and said with a wry smile, have you become so red? It seems that I can't call your name casually in the future. Quote. Alright, there's only 10 minutes left until the Shinkansen departs, let's go. Kamime patted Tetsutsu's sturdy shoulder and walked past him into the underground station first. Although the surrounding teenagers and girls are a little regretful that they can't take a photo with Shangming, they are also very satisfied with being able to take a close-up celebrity photo. At least this is enough to contract a whole day of conversation today. After watching Electromagnetism for an hour in the bullet train, Kamime and Tetsutsu finally came to the boundary of Yue in Shizuoka Prefecture again. The two of them stood silently for a moment in front of the open Xiangying protective wall, their eyes fixed on the Xiangying school emblem on it. After a while, Tai Jie smiled. Hey, Shangming, we're Xiangying students from today onwards, right? Yes. Quote. Shangming nodded, then said, I'm ready, what about you? Of course. As soon as Tai Jie's words fell, the two teenagers stepped out at the same time, walking side by side into the Xiangying protective wall, and the rising sun in the early morning formed the most beautiful background behind them. Xiangying, here we come. Shangming, Tai Jie. Suddenly, a familiar female voice came from behind them, and when the two of them turned around to look tacitly, they were running with their backs to the bright morning sun, waving their hands, and the sound of the ears blended into the background very naturally. From a farther distance, Shangming, Tai Jie, Erlang, and the Xiangying protective wall, facing the bright sunshine also turned into a vibrant and beautiful group photo. At the same time, a green-haired teenager who also cherished the dream of a blazing hero also pushed open the door of the house under his mother's encouraging gaze, letting the golden morning sun splash on his immature face. Olmut, I'm coming. Everything started from this moment. Chapter 32. There's something big inside this Xiangying. Tai Jie said with some amazement as he curiously took a large number of surroundings. Definitely. Quote. Erlang nodded, and at the same time, his eyes scanned back and forth in what he thought was very hidden, and the nearby Xiangying students were wearing the same school uniforms as them. And there are a lot of students here. As time passed, Tai Jie's expression became more and more indifferent. Well, judging from the movement of his hands in his trouser pockets, it is obvious that he has become accustomed to the atmosphere of Xiangying. This also means that he has begun to naturally see himself as a member of Xiangying. Maybe this is another proof that simple guys are often self-acquainted. It's normal to have a lot. After all, Xiangying not only has a hero department related to professional heroes, a support department, a business management department, but also a normal general department. Quote. Shangming, who was walking in front of the three of them, looked at the signpost above his head and walked in the direction of Shangying Class A, while casually recounting the information he knew. However, even in the general course, the number of students in Shangying is much smaller than that of other universities. After all, even if they are admitted to Shangying through the normal written examination, the difficulty is no less than our previous practical test. Quote. The three of them took the elevator to the 5th floor, which is the area where the first year of the 3 subjects, including the Hero Division, the Support Division, and the Business Management Division, are located. The Support Division and the Business Management Division are on the left side of the elevator, while the Hero Division occupies the right side. It's here. Hero Section Class A. Quote. Shangming carried his bag and calmly looked at the door in front of him that was painted with 1A red letters, but it was a little outrageously high. Well, after all, it's already here, it's impossible to be nervous, and he is only full of curiosity now, curious about what kind of people the classmates in the room are, and what kind of personality abilities they have. The door was gently pulled open by Shang Ming, and then he was the first to step into the room, and he needed to stand out from thousands of competitors in order to be eligible to enter and exit the class. Quote. Quote. The students who were already seated in the room looked at the three of them tacitly, and then there was a burst of silence. Just as they stared at each other, a tall man with glasses sitting in the back row suddenly stood up, and then walked in front of the three of Shangming seriously, stretching out his right hand. Good morning. I'm Amaya Iida, a graduate of a private smart junior high school. Shangming Electric. Quote. Shangming saw that it was this cadre who had impressed him before, and he didn't care about the displeasure at the time, and shook his hand very faithfully, and at the same time casually said his name. The ears are fragrant. Quote. My name is Tai J. Che Tai. Tai J tilted his head and made a proud look and said, the future is destined to become the best hardcore hero. This guy. Hearing Tai J's declaration, the others didn't react, but one of the red-haired teenagers raised his eyebrows, but because they didn't know each other very well, he didn't say much. But in my heart, I thought that I would have a chance to let this guy see his ability in the future. Shangming and the three of them walked to the window and sat down, but as soon as Shangming sat down, the black-haired girl who was sitting not far away and was a little taller than her peers suddenly glanced at Shangming with interest. Kamime. Electrical. Huh. As soon as the girl's voice fell, the students, who were already idle, diverted their attention again. What's wrong? Quote. Hearing someone call himself, Kamito habitually smiled handsomely. Hello, my name is 8,000,000, and I've heard your songs before. Quote. This female classmate, who claims to be 8,000,000, casually brushed the black silk in her ear, and smiled very beautifully. Although I don't have a special hobby for rock and roll, your songs are all very good. Quote. Especially the song, Only-My-Railgun. As for hero, it feels more suitable for boys. Quote. Thank you, it's my honor to be liked by you. Quote. I've heard or seen this kind of thing recently, I don't know how many times, so I didn't feel that surprised and excited, well, even if the other party was a beautiful girl. Poof. Unexpectedly, 8,000,000 laughed all at once, and then glanced at Shangming angrily. We're classmates, is it really good for you to respond so officially? Then he realized that Shangming didn't understand her words, and added, I've visited your MTV page before, and that's not what you said when you replied to the comments. Quote. Quote. Shangming was speechless, but the classmates around him who didn't know him were curious in their hearts. Judging from the conversation just now, Shangming seemed to be a singer, and he also had his own personal page on MTV. Especially the English song title just mentioned by 8,000,000, how can it be familiar? Soon, a girl covered in powder looked at the information she had just queried in surprise. She didn't expect that her classmate was still a celebrity who could search for detailed information. The song of the super electromagnetic cannon is the You Sing. When Ishido-sana saw the work column under the information, he couldn't help but cry out with surprise in his heart. As soon as she said this, she reacted to the students who didn't care about the entertainment industry. Super electromagnetic cannon. They took out their mobile phones and searched for them, and soon the loud voices with higher decibels rang out one after another. It's really you. Wow, my classmate turned out to be the creator of Super Electromagnetic Cannon. This is Yi Yintu, but except for the suspended clothes, I can't see the specific appearance at all, which makes Tai J look at her curiously. Hey, this, hero. It's also your song. I've heard it more than 10 times before. This is the red-haired Kirishima Sharp Ear. Other people who are more silent often secretly step into the shadow, Bang Jiao Liang and others, but they didn't take out their mobile phones to search, but when they heard the words from other people's mouths, they couldn't help but look sideways slightly. Thank you for liking my songs, but I'm not a singer now, and I'm not a star. I'm a student in Class A of the Hero Department like everyone else, so please give me more advice in the future. This kind of scene, Shengming actually had expected it a long time ago, so he didn't act in a hurry. He knew very well that this situation would also occur this time, and in the future, when everyone got used to his presence, there would be no more fuss. Smack. At this time, the door was opened with a very rough force, and you could feel how frightened the door was from the sound that came, which also made the atmosphere that had begun to be lively fall into the freezing point in an instant. Shangming and the others looked at the person, and saw that this person had hedgehog-like pale yellow hair, and he exuded a naked arrogant aura all over his body, especially the way he walked, looking more like a gangster than a student. Bang. Quote. I saw that the young man sat at the back very casually, and at the same time raised his right leg and put it on the clean desk. Well, to be honest, Shangming has a bad impression of him, and he can even say that he hates this guy a little, which has nothing to do with mental age but simply dislikes this kind of person. Chapter 33. At this time, Iida Tenya saw the others, and he didn't mean to stop him at all, so he stood up and walked over without saying a word, and shouted, "Don't put your feet on the desk." Huh. Burst glanced at the nosy four-eyed boy. Don't you think it's very sorry for Shangying's seniors and the people who make the desks? But Iida Tenya, who was upright, was not shocked by Bang Hao's terrifying eyes at all. This made the somewhat tyrannical Bang Hao laugh angrily, and it was the first time he had met a peer who dared to talk to him like this. I don't think so. Also, which middle school did you graduate from? A small supporting role. I. Quote. Just when Iida Tenya was about to introduce himself, Shengming couldn't stand it. This guy was too arrogant. He didn't expect that this Shangmi also had such a ruffian guy. This reminded him of the scum who engaged in all kinds of bullying at school in his previous life, so he didn't know about Bang Hao's Shengming, and said directly, "Where do you care where he graduated?" Quote. If you put your legs down, let them go. Where is all this nonsense? Do you not understand Japanese, or do you have some kind of physical defect? You guy. Bang Hao was furious, glared directly at him, and at the same time subconsciously clenched his hands inward. What, dissatisfied? Tai Jie saw that Shengming and Bang Hao were facing each other, and stood up without hesitation, clenched his fists to the ground, and laughed playfully. If you don't accept it, hold it for me. It seems that you want to be slaughtered by me. Bao Hao also stood up directly, in stalemate with Tai Jie. Slaughter. Hearing Bang Hao's words, the people around him were a little surprised in their hearts. This guy is really a person who aspires to be a professional hero. Shengming had no intention of stopping them, he couldn't fight anyway, and even if he did, he believed that Tai Jie would not suffer. Well, that's. At this time, I wanted to see if the teacher had come, and he was the first to find the green-haired boy who appeared at the door quietly, and soon others also found him, including Tai Jie and Bang Hao. When Bang Hao saw the green-haired boy, his face suddenly changed, and he pursed his lips and sat down, while scanning Tai Jie with a warning look. But this time his leg was not put up again. Then, naturally, the class leader Iida Amaya, on behalf of the whole class, greeted the green-haired boy and the cute girl Riri Ochako who appeared next. Soon, the people that Kamina had been expecting finally appeared. However, there was something wrong with the way the squad went out, and he was wrapped in a yellow sleeping bag and lay on the ground to meet them for the first time. If you want to play, or if you're looking for friends, go somewhere else. Quote. This is the hero section. Quote. 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 Everyone fell silent, as if they had seen something strange. Well, it took 8 seconds to finally quiet down. Quote. But the teacher didn't care what they thought at all, and while standing up and getting out of the sleeping bag, he said to himself, obviously time is limited. Well, you're very unreasonable. Quote. Shengming looked at this teacher but was a little disappointed. He was originally looking forward to this coming, but he didn't expect it to be such a decadent person, and now he even doubts whether this teacher can fight. I'm your homeroom teacher, Aizawa Shouta, please advise. Aizawa-sensei whispered weakly. This made the students feel even more unreliable in their hearts. In other words, this is really different from the Shangying in their previous impressions. Didn't that hermit also come to Shangying to coach? They're in Class A, so shouldn't that superhero be the homeroom teacher? Or is he going to teach the third-grade seniors? But again, this Aizawa teacher didn't care about their opinions at all and continued his work. I saw him take out a backpack, take out a blue and white sportswear from it and say, "Don't waste time, wear this to the playground." 10 minutes later. It's not that it takes so long for them to change clothes, it's because boys and girls take turns changing indoors, and of course, girls spend a little more time. It is worth mentioning that Shang Ming found that the little man, who could barely reach a meter tall, was actually leaning on the door with a lewd face, trying to listen to the movement inside. Well, this also made Shang Ming remember the kid, but he didn't ask for a name. Instead, he gave a pronoun of purple grapes in his heart, and at the same time was curious about what the other party's personality was. Soon wait for everyone to change into sportswear and come to the empty playground. Well, after all, it's class time, and the Aizawa class guide has obviously been waiting for a long time, and his expression looks like he's about to fall asleep. After the crowd had lined up in 2 columns, he opened his mouth to say the content of the first lesson. Personality Mastery Test. This made Leary Ochako, who was originally looking forward to the entrance ceremony, very much unhappy, but in the face of this cute girl's dissatisfaction, the class guide was very faceless. If you want to be a hero, you don't have time for that kind of leisurely event. Quote. I see. Quote. Shangming understood. It seems that the reason why there is no one on the playground is not because it is class time, but because they are all running to attend the entrance ceremony. This made him begin to understand a little bit of the style of this Aizawa class guide. However, he liked this very much, and in the last world, he hated the long and boring ceremonies. Sure enough, the class leader briefly introduced the difference between this test and the previous tests, that is, they were required to use their personality to take a physical fitness test that they had done in elementary school and middle school I don't know how many times. There are a total of 8 test contents. Pitching, standing long jump, 50-meter speed run, long distance running, grip strength, repeated horizontal jumps, sit-ups, forward bends. Although it looks ordinary, the thought of being able to test his basic attributes with his personality makes him look forward to this test. And he can also look at the personalities of other students, which also makes him feel very good at this time, and the students who can enter Class A must have very strong personalities, right? Maybe you can see someone like Tai J, who has a personality ability similar to the X-Men in his previous life, and it's not necessarily. Just as Kamime's thoughts were flowing freely again, Aizawa suddenly called out his name and forcibly pulled him back from the magical Marvel world. The first place in the actual test was Shangming, right? Quote. Yes. Shangming nodded, and also made the explosion on the side unpleasantly cut that he would lose to the yellow-haired one. How many meters can you throw when you were in junior high school? Asked Aizawa as he continued. 72 meters. Kamito casually returned. He has been exercising rain or shine all these years, but he is not joking. His current normal physical fitness may not be comparable to Tai J, who is born with extraordinary strength. But compared to other students who don't have extraordinary strength and physique, it must be a lot stronger. After all, the sweat that has been shed will not deceive people. 72 meters. Bang Hao was even more unhappy. His highest record was 67 meters. He didn't understand. Shang Ming, who didn't look very strong, where did he get the strength to throw himself farther than him? But he didn't know that he hadn't exercised, and he could be similar to Shang Ming, who had been exercising for nearly 10 years, just by relying on his physical talent. If Shang Ming knew about it, he would definitely be complained about as a talent dog. Then I cast it again with my personality. Quote. Kamime nodded, and then walked to the painted white circle in the eyes of everyone, which was the pitching position. Move at high speed, open. In the next second, a bright golden arc gradually appeared on his body, and soon the intensity of the electric current continued to increase, and the cells of his body were activated again, especially the current on the entire right arm was even denser. Then let me see, my limit. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 34. Boom Crack. As Shang Ming threw his right hand violently with the technique of electric light fist, the white ball in his palm was instantly entwined with rolling golden electricity, and flew towards the farther sky. From below, it looks like a golden meteor appearing in the daytime, dragging a gorgeous tail flame in an incomparably gorgeous posture, galloping freely in the blue sky. Until the current dissipates, the white ball falls back to the ground helplessly under the gravitational pull of the Earth again. 412.7 meters. Class instructor Aizawa glanced at the numbers on the rangefinder in his hand, and then indifferently turned the screen to all the students. Just like this, you guys should understand your limits first. Quote. But in my heart, I have a certain opinion on Shang Ming's actions just now. Do you use electric current to stimulate the musculature of the body to temporarily strengthen your physical fitness? Very interesting imagination. Quote. In addition, the ability to smoothly transfer electricity from other parts of the body into the palm of the hand at the moment of pitching shows that the control of personality has also been trained to a certain extent. Quote. On the other side, the students began to get excited when they saw Shangming's data that was far beyond normal people. Wow. It's a lie, it's more than 400 meters. Looks interesting. You can use your personality to your heart's content, and it's not a hero. But their insolent performance attracted the attention of Aizawa Bandao. Looks like a lot of fun. Is it? Quote. Huh. Midoriya and the other teenagers and girls looked at each other puzzled. Do you want to spend the 3 years you have been a hero with such a mentality? At this time, the class guide Aizawa, who had been listless, suddenly showed a malicious smile, and he seemed to have suddenly become interested in this group of new hero class A students. Okay. Quote. In that case, then I will treat the person who finished last in the total of the 8 events as having no potential and will be expelled. What? Quote. Not to mention the other people who spoke in unison, even Shangming, Bang scorching, and often secretly stepping on them, they also looked at Aizawa in disbelief. Hey, just kidding, this is too much nonsense, isn't it? Kamime complained frantically in his heart, but for some reason he suddenly remembered the man named Hagi Kakashi. Maybe he's not kidding. Quote. This also made Shangming's face begin to become serious, and at this time, Aizawa class guide suddenly lifted the long bangs in front of him, and then showed a very terrifying and happy expression. Welcome. This is the hero section of Shangying High School. But it was immediately met with a strong protest led by Lirio Chako, who couldn't understand the damn rules at all, and it was only the first day of school, and it was still the first class. Honestly, actually, Kamime thought so too, but he knew that if Aizawa really decided to do so, and Shangei's school rules allowed such as. No, he must have been allowed to say this, and if so, there was no point in saying anything more. Therefore, he chose to be silent, and it is obvious that this truth, whether it is 8 million hundred, or a scorching cold, often stepping on the shade, and the frog blowing the rainy season, they have also realized it. Natural disasters, major accident, and the unbridled enemies, disasters that can become at any time and anywhere, and Japan is now full of such unreasonable existences. Quote. And the one who overthrows these crises is the hero. Quote. Aizawa's words were very plain, but they also silenced the 20 students present, and began to feel the responsibility and pressure brought by the 4 words of professional heroes, and from this moment their understanding of professional heroes had a further layer. If you plan to go to McDonald's after school to have fun, then I can only say sorry, after all, the road is under your own feet. Quote. So for the next 3 years, Shangying will spare no effort to bring you endless suffering. Rush to the other side farther away, this is called plus ultra. Maybe it was Shangming's illusion, he always felt that this class guide, who looked extremely decadent, seemed to be a little excited when he said the last 2 sentences. Or is he himself excited? He felt that he had really made the right choice to come to Shangying, and he already felt that in the next few years, everything he would experience would be more exciting than he could have imagined in the previous 15 years. Seeing that the students had already gained some consciousness, class instructor Aizawa didn't say anything more, and directly announced the start of the test. The first event is the 50-meter speed run. Ready. Poof. Under the dull sound of air, Iida Tenya, who had already taken off his glasses, left the frog blowing plum rain behind him far behind him with an extremely serious attitude. 3.04 seconds. I'll go, what kind of personality is this? Seeing his speed, Shangming was honestly stunned, especially the steaming exhaust vents behind the other party's legs, which surprised him even more, it was so interesting. Followed by Leary Imperial Tea, Aoyama Elegant, Bang Scorched Frozen, Burst Hao Shengji and others. Well, Shangming has been attracted by the various personalities of these people, and to be honest, the rank is indeed higher than the ordinary people he has seen before. Especially the heroes who beat themselves in Qingshan elegance are even more focused on by him. Explosion, laser. Shangming muttered as he kept their personality traits in mind. he was curious about how powerful these two people's individual abilities were, and how they compared to their own coined version of the super electromagnetic cannon. The last group, Bang Scorch Jelly and Shangming Electric. Quote. At this time, the voice of Aizawa class guide with personal characteristics came. To be honest, this group was deliberately done by him. He really wanted to see the second place in the recommended student assessment of Bang Jiao Leng, and in the practical test of more than 1,000 people stood out in the Shangming Electric, whose personality ability is stronger. And these two people have obviously been trained, their personalities in advance. But Shangming didn't know about Bang Jiao Jelly, and of course Bang Jiao Liang didn't know Shangming, so the two of them didn't have any pressure, and they naturally glanced at each other and calmly walked to the starting line. However, everyone felt inexplicably confident from them. Shangming will win. Speed is his forte. Tai Jie, with his hands in his trouser pockets, looked like a geographical expression. Erlang on the side also nodded in agreement. She had not only seen Shangming's high-speed movement before, but also experienced the feeling of galloping. But these words attracted the attention of 8,000,000. By the way, you don't know about the scorching freeze yet, do you? What? Tai Jie and the others looked at 8,000,000, only to see this noble beautiful girl, looking at the cold Bang Jiao Liang in the distance, and said, that Bang Jiao Liang is the strongest recommended student this year. Quote. At the same time, he silently added in his heart, if you don't count the Yelenanaza who suddenly chose to give up. Quote. And what is his personality? Asked Bang Hao suddenly. It's frozen, he seems to be able to create and control ice. 8,000,000 returns. Frozen, but Tai Jie laughed when he heard this. It sounds like a very powerful personality. Yes, but how can you make yourself faster with the ability to freeze? Kaminade's speed is no joke. 8,000,000 didn't understand Shangming, so he shrugged his shoulders and said, after a while, you will understand that the training of Bang Scorch's personality is obviously not at the same level as those of us. Quote. At this time, Bang Jiaoling and Shangming were ready. The command was also given by the device that measured the speed from a distance. Ready, ready, phew, crackle. A blue shadow, a golden shadow, almost at the same time as the sound came into the ears, rushed out of the straight white line in an instant. Chapter 35. Here we go. The teachers and students who were not familiar with each other and might not even know each other's names quieted down at this time, focusing on Shangming and Bang. There is no way, the distance of just 50 meters, if you don't look carefully, it is likely that the two of them have already reached the point in the blink of an eye. It can be like this. At this time, Tai Jie, who originally swore that he had a frozen personality and had no gain in speed, was shocked by the bombardment's behavior at this moment. I saw that on the track, he stepped on the ice blocks that were constantly generated from his feet, and pushed forward frantically with an extremely strong attitude, and what was even more terrifying was that he stood on the smooth ice without the slightest instability. At this glance, you can see that the scorching is frozen in the use of ice, and it has indeed undergone unimaginable training. And the most surprising thing is naturally Shangming, one of the parties involved. At this time he is in a state of high-speed movement, full open, but even the blue shadow beside him has no sign of disappearing from his five senses. There is no way. Shangming, who is galloping with all his might, has no extra energy to look at the boom next to him, and can only use the blue shadow in the corner of his eye and subconsciously feel to roughly understand the location of the boom. Phew, crackle. In fact, the competition between the two lasted only a few seconds, and it was probably from the second breath after the start. Shangming and Bang Scorching had already crossed the finish line in their own way. Interestingly, the road of the Shangming run was extremely clean, while the road of the Bang was covered by a long icicle path. Who wins? But now no one cared about the rather magical scene, but quickly focused on the speedometer. 3.07 seconds. 3.09 seconds. Hearing these two sets of numbers, others may just think it's fast, but Amaya, Iida, who has an engine personality and is quite confident in terms of speed, has mixed feelings. The straight line speed of these two people is comparable to my third gear. It's so strong that people are desperate. Quote. Although the limit of his personality is not the third gear, as long as he is given longer distance and time, he can continue to improve the speed level, but he simply uses the original ability of his personality. On the other hand, the sound and the boom are the personalities that seem to have nothing to do with the movement speed, and they have been developed in a wonderful way, so that they can derive the effect of another field, and from this point of view, the gap between them is indeed a bit big. Aizawa-sensei, who reached the end first. Ishido-sana, who has the most lively personality among the girls, asked, because Kamime and Hona seem to be rushing almost side by side to the point, plus the speedometer does not say the respective owners of the two sets of numbers, so basically no one can see who wins and who loses. Aizawa didn't actually see it, although his personality was focused on the eyes, but he didn't have the ability to perceive, and he also had the problem of dry eye disease, so he was basically not better than the students in terms of eyesight, and it could even be said that it was worse. Upper Ming 3.07 seconds. Quote. But fortunately, he was as witty as he specially prepared a microdisplay to match the speedometer, so he still calmly answered the doubts of Ishido-sana and others. Well, there's no shame in it. But as soon as he said this, the students present instantly understood the result. It's Shangming who won. But Kamina's personality looks like a thunderbolt system. Why is there such a fast speed? Didn't you notice the operation just now? I think it's handsome. Ha ha ha, I knew that Shangming would win. This is naturally Tai-J. At this moment, his face was full of self-satisfaction, very happy for Shangming's result, and at the same time glanced at Bang, who came over silently, and said in his heart, what about the strongest recommended student? Shangming is the strongest first grade. But they didn't notice that after arriving at the finish line, Shangming Electric did not return to the queue with Bang Jiao Jelly, but slowly walked to the remaining icicles, and at the same time stretched out his right palm and gently stuck to the ice surface that was still exuding cold air. Crackle. In the next second, golden currents emerged from his palms, and as soon as these currents touched the ice, they tried to spread to other places as if they had a spiritual mind, but unfortunately, they failed. This situation made Shang Ming's brows furrow slightly, and he said secretly, it's not conductive. Is it because these ice cubes are made of personality? The reason is actually very simple. The principle of pure water and ice is non-conductive, but because there are few impurities of water and ice in the real environment, it gives people the wrong perception that water and ice are actually conductive. And these ices are things that are made by bombardment freeze itself with its own ability, so it has basically not been polluted in any way. Yes, these are pure ice that is infinitely close to zero impurities. It seems that this bomb can only achieve the freezing effect through physical contact. At most, it is to exercise to the level where the freezing effect can be extended. Quote. It's not like the Admiral I know, who can instantly freeze all nearby existences through the cold air released by releasing it. But also, how old is he? How can he be compared to that one? Thinking of this, Shangming's stinky problem was committed again, and his thinking began to emanate itself again, but this time the object was not the Marvel world, but the Great Voyage. I don't know what level of existence he will have if he comes to this world. Is it possible to be better than Japan's No 1 Ulmit and No 2 Andva? But now it's class time, and Instructor Aizawa doesn't give him more time at all. What are you still standing there for? It's time for the second item. Quote. Yes. The second item is grip strength. Shangming took the electronic grip device that had just been sent, looked at it and found that it was nothing special, and began to cast an electric current to temporarily activate the entire right arm, and then he just shook it hard. Well, a number appeared on the grip device. Quote question mark question mark question mark question mark quote. Shangming looked at the 4 question marks on the screen with a black line. What is the situation? Don't tell him that this means that his grip strength is infinite. At this time, the others had basically finished measuring their grip strength, and some of them excitedly began to report their own or other people's numbers out loud. It's so strong. It's 540 kg, are you an orangutan? Oh, no, it's an octopus. Lady Zero, who has the personality of duct tape, was surprised as she looked at the data that she held with her 3 arms at the same time. Octopus. Well, it's a kind of color. Mineta said in a shocking voice. But they didn't notice that in the lively atmosphere, Shangming and the green-haired boy remained silent, but one was full of black lines and the other was depressed. Shangming, my grip strength is 610, what about you? At this time, Tai-J came over with a smile on his face and asked, and then he didn't wait for Shangming to speak, and directly looked at the grip in his hand. Well, in fact, Shangming now has no desire to speak. Holy. Shangming, your grip strength is unknown. Does this mean that the grip strength is infinite? Tai-J's thoughtless words were like a clutch sweeping away the original atmosphere, and the entire room fell silent in an instant. Quote. Quote. Aizawa glanced at the grip in Kamime's hand, and twitched the corners of his mouth as he couldn't remain calm anymore. That's a short-circuited. Chapter 36. The third event is the standing long jump. Kamina directly concentrated the current on his legs, and then flew directly out at 10.8 meters of data with a stride jump, but it was still a lot worse than the frog blowing the plum rain who was good at jumping, the elegance of Aoyama pushed by the naval laser, and the leery Mikako and others who floated over after becoming gravityless. Interestingly, in this link, the scorching jelly with an elite posture behaved very ordinary, basically no different from ordinary people, and the boy named Midoriya Izuku. He can be said to be the most incomprehensible person in Shangming, because no matter how you look at him, he is an ordinary person without any superpowers. How did he pass that exam? Shangming glanced at Midoriya from afar, but for some reason, this young man actually gave him an inexplicable feeling. Yes, it was inexplicable, I can't say what it was like, but it was something weird, and from time to time he moved his attention to the other party. And that invisibility. For this girl named Yi Yintu, although Shangming was curious about her appearance, he didn't care too much. Stealth or something. I believe that after his attainments in the electromagnetic field reach a certain level, it will be meaningless. The fourth item is repeated horizontal jumps. This gave Shangming a little insight into the personality of that color grape, which was generally quite interesting, but he was curious about whether the other party's hair could be destroyed with physics, or whether his thunder and lightning would have an effect on him. If not, Shangming felt that this ability was very strong. However, Kamito also discovered the problem of colored grapes, that is, his purple grapes, were thrown out by hand or placed on the ground, which means that if they do not reach a certain number of scales, their hit rate is low. Especially in the face of an agile opponent like him, as long as he is careful not to be thrown by the opponent, there is no threat in other aspects. Shangming's final conclusion is that this is a personality that relies more on high intelligence, but looking at the virtue of the three sentences of color grapes that do not leave the driver's seat, I really can't see how smart it is. Of course, it's also possible that he is clumsy, or that he doesn't know much about it, and maybe this guy really hides amazing tactical intelligence. Fifth, pitching. When Kamina saw Raiki Ochako throw the ball into true infinity, the first reaction in his heart was, the golden lion of the future. I just don't know, can you be like the golden lion, make things gravityless and then manipulate them a second time, such as floating the soil, shaping it into various forms, and then throwing it at the target? However, Kamito also knew that with her now, she would definitely not be able to do it, and he was simply guessing about the potential of personality. Shangming has already voted just now, so the next one is to beat yourself. Aizawa said flatly. It's finally my turn. Bang Hao has long been unhappy with Shangming's previous limelight, especially after Shangming and Bang's 50-meter speed run. The whole class seems to have decided that the two of them are the strongest in Class A. The rest of the story doesn't matter. But his self-esteem is a little extreme, but he doesn't lack the mentality of disobedience. Why must the strongest ones be those two miscellaneous hares? Ridiculous. Bang! With a deafening explosion and a blinding fire, the white ball rushed into the clear blue sky with a long powder tail flame like a cannonball fired by a howitzer fired with all its firepower. Exclamation mark. Hearing this, Shangming complained to Tai Jie beside him, in terms of roughness, you may not really be that guy's opponent. Cut. Tai Jie pursed his lips rather disdainfully. He doesn't like Bang Hao very much now, probably because his father is a soldier. He looks down on Bang Hao very much, a bully, and a bastard who has no manners. He regarded Bang Hao's bad attitude towards Midoriya as the essence of Bang Hao's personality, coupled with the previous incident of putting his legs on the desk. He even decided that Bang Hao was a complete bastard. 3 seconds later, Aizawa glanced at the refreshed rangefinder. 705.2 meters. He announced the results and said calmly, well, that's your limit, remember it, and then surpass it in the coming days. Wow. More than 700 meters, is it so terrifying? The people present thought that the more than 400 meters before Shangming was already very powerful, but they didn't expect that there would be a more bullish bee. Is it so much stronger than me in terms of explosiveness? As a member of the comparison, Shangming didn't have any negative emotions. Just kidding, if he couldn't get along with a 15-year-old innocent boy because of this, then wouldn't he live to a dog all these years? Bang Hao's data just made Shangming have a deeper understanding of his strengths and weaknesses. So in response to the provocative gaze that Bang Hao turned behind him, he just responded with a flat and watery look, and then set his eyes on the next student. Well, in the end, Midoriya Izuhisa. Quote, Aizawa said softly, and at the same time secretly said in his heart, it's time. Quote, Iida Tenya, who was in the same area as Midoriya in the actual skill test, and a few people in Riri Gochiko, their eyes were full of anticipation, while others who didn't know Midoriya, such as Kamime, Tetsutsu and others, were curious. No one will think that Green Valley has no personality because of its poor performance in the previous few projects, and this is the hero class A of Shangying University. Well, except for the only one who thinks that Midoriya is a personality blaster, the eyes that look at Midoriya are all disdainful, as if he has seen the scene where the other party was ordered to drop out of school for a while. It's going to be bad for Midoritani-kun to go on like this, said Iida Tenya worriedly. Huh. When he heard this, he pointed to Midoriya's back with disdain and said, isn't this nonsense? Ah. Iida Tenya was stunned. With an expression of concern for some children, he looked down at Bang Hao and replied, no personality. Don't you know about his feat in the entrance exam? Feat. Quote. Not to mention the argument between Iida Tenya and Bang Hao, Kamime noticed this sentence, let me see, what did you do on the basis of this so-called feat? Quote. Although he doesn't want to be arrogant, he is not a person who is arrogant, and he doesn't think that Midoriya's feat in the exam can be more feat than what he, Tetsujay, and Erlang have done together. Obviously, Tetsujay and Erlang were also very unimpressed by Iida Tenya's words, they just kept a low profile and didn't want to show off, and there were even people who took the initiative to show off in front of them, they were really fearless. At this time, Midoriya threw the ball, but there is nothing to do with the extraordinary 46 meters. This surprised everyone except for Bang Hao, including Shangming Electric. To be honest, he is now beginning to suspect that Midoriya came in through the back door, although this is not very likely, but apart from this, it is really impossible to explain the fact that Midoriya entered Class A. I removed your individuality. Quote. At this time, Aizawa Bandao, who had been silent and decadent, suddenly pulled off the white bandage on his neck, and then made it float around in a wonderful way. That kind of entrance exam is really unreasonable. A guy like you can even go to school. Quote. His tone was full of dissatisfaction, and he didn't know if it was against Shangming, or the organizers of this system, or both. What? Eliminate individuality. But Kamina's mind was indeed like a slap in the face, because he thought of a bug-level strongman with similar abilities. I'm going, shouldn't it be similar to the ability of the previous article to be hemp? No, judging from this situation, this class guide can obviously be eliminated from a distance, and this alone is better than being hemp. Hey, such a foul ability, is it actually a teacher in Shangmi? Horror. Kamina looked at Aizawa with a smile on his face, and at the same time complained frantically in his heart, but his expression was still so flawless, except for a little surprise, he didn't show anything. As one of the people who aims to be a big star, controlling one's own appearance is a basic operation. Except for some cases. Chapter 37. Eliminated the individuality. Midoriya muttered to himself, and suddenly when his gaze fell on the yellow goggles around Aizawa's neck, the information of a professional hero instantly appeared in his mind. He looked at Aizawa in surprise and exclaimed, that goggles, I see. A personality that can erase the other person's individuality by looking at them. Eliminate the hero, eraser, head. As Midoriya said the true identity of Aizawa's class guide, the academy began to discuss, but Kamime did not participate in it, but carefully remembered the personality ability that Midoriya had just said. The mere act of looking at can erase one's individuality. Well, it sounds like it's a lot better than the last one in Blackbeard in terms of elimination. After all, both of them need to touch people. At the same time, I began to habitually think about how to deal with Aizawa's personality if I had to face Aizawa in the future. Well, that's a tricky question. However, he believes that any personality has its limits, and as long as he can get enough information and time to respond, he should be able to come up with a solution. By the way, and that kind of means of manipulating the bandages. What is that? Is it a second sexual ability? Or is it something like mental control, or is there really a so-called pupil power? Kamime found that the more he studied Aizawa, the more interesting it was for him, and then again, isn't this one of the wonders of this world? At this time, I saw the bandage of Aizawa Bandao, and suddenly rapped the Midoriya boy in front of him out of thin air, as if he had said something again. All in all, Midoriya boy's face became ugly, and then walked back to the pitching circle again. The expression of the young man in Midoriya became serious, and some kind of wonderful fire shone in his eyes. He chose to pitch again. At the same time, the blood in my heart began to boil. What Aizawa-sensei said is very reasonable. If I continue to do the same as before, I will never be able to become a hero. I'm going to have to work twice as hard as he does. So do your best and do what I can now. Huh. At this moment, Shangming didn't know if it was his own illusion, and the space seemed to suddenly reverberate with an inexplicable BGM, making his eyes unable to take his eyes off the Green Valley boy. It seems to be glowing. No, it's his fingers glowing. Smash. In the roar of the Green Valley boy, the white ball in his hand directly broke through the blockade of the sound barrier, and flew towards the other side farther away in a circle of white air. Bang! What's even more exaggerated is that at the moment when the air wave dispersed, not only did it produce a loud noise that made the ears of Shangming and the others tingle, but at the same time, the ground centered on the Green Valley boy seemed to have been hit by a hurricane, and the sand and dust were frantically raised upward. No, what's going on? Shangming was stunned to look at the white ball that had turned into a star in the sky. The destructive power of that ball should be comparable to my super electromagnetic cannon. If you compare the range, it's simply a complete coin version of the super electromagnetic cannon. Don't talk about him, everyone in the field again, one counts as one, and no one is not shocked by Green Valley's goal at this time, especially the explosive man who has always thought that Green Valley has no personality, and he is running countless grass and mud horses in his heart. At this moment, Shangming felt like he had become a supporting character. This made his eyes look at Midoriya complicated, and he seemed to have a strange idea in his heart. 705.3 meters. Aizawa glanced at the rangefinder in his hand, but before he could say the result, he heard the young man Midoriya call him. Teacher. You can still move. The expression of the young man in Midoriya was completely a stubborn expression that he wanted to cry out. But he endured it, and this sentence also penetrated the heart of Aizawa Bandao at once, as well as Armit, who was quietly observing all this from a distance. Is his personality bursting out with great strange power in an instant? Kasumi touched his chin and thought that if it was just that, it wouldn't be a hassle to deal with it, as long as he was careful to avoid the fatal blow. It may be the reason why he was a fan of Japanese manga in his previous life. Whenever he sees an interesting personality ability, Kamina thinks about the nature of his ability in his heart, and how to deal with it, which is a very interesting personal game for him. In the next few remaining projects, Kamime found that Izuku Midoriya didn't have any outstanding performance, as if he had become an ordinary person with no personality again. This made Shangming more and more convinced of Midorigu's previous personality guesses, and the other party's personality was likely to be an explosive personality, or a charged personality. Soon the test ended, and Shangming and others also passed this test, and deeply understood what they could do, what they could not do, what they were suitable for, and what they were not suitable for. Especially Shangming, under his special inquiry, he basically understood the personality and ability of each student in Class A, and what he cared about the most was the Bang's scorching freeze and the ability of 8,000,000. Half burning, half freezing and creating, it's really hard to get higher than the other. Quote. Thinking of this, the smile on Shangming's face became brighter and brighter, but my personality is not bad, no matter what transcendent world it is, the ability of thunder and lightning is a top talent. This is the end of the test. Quote, the teacher has information about the lesson plan, and I read it all after I go back, and I don't want anyone in Class A to be late or absent. Quote, Aizawa turned around and was about to leave. He had to go back and sort out the student information he had just collected, and then come up with a long-term exercise plan for everyone, so it could be said that he was going to be busy for a while. Seeing the class guide leaving, the students glanced at each other, and then walked towards the class in twos and threes. I don't know what the next lessons will be. Tai-J put his hands in his trouser pockets and looked forward to it, if only they all used their personalities like they had just done. Then he glanced at the back of the young man Midoriya who was heading to the infirmary, and pouted. What a weirdo, with such a strong personality, why should he be so afraid of that bad guy? He didn't mean to avoid Banghao at all, although the tone was not deliberately raised, but it was still a little obvious in this empty playground. But I don't know why, there is still an inexplicable anger on his face, but this time he didn't react but stared at Green Valley with an incomparably terrifying look. Stinky for a long time, you dare to deceive me. Shang Ming glanced at Bang Hao and said softly, judging from the power of the ball just now, it may not be that I am afraid of him, but that I am worried about hurting people, so I avoid it everywhere. Well, that's probably the most reasonable guess. Quote. He didn't deliberately provoke the other party, he just said his thoughts naturally, could he still have to worry about what he wanted to say? And this explanation doesn't seem to be a problem, otherwise how can you explain Midoritani's cowardice in the face of Bang Hao? Of course, it may also be because of some kind of love. Click. Hearing this, Bang Hao's footsteps stopped instantly, and there was a burst of popping sound in his hands, only to see him turn his head and glare at him viciously. What did you just say? Chapter 38. Bang Hao has always regarded Green Valley as a follower behind him, and he can only continue to envy his little follower, especially after knowing that he is impersonal. This mentality is even more ingrained. In the eyes of Bang Hao, Green Valley can be admitted to Xiangying with him, which can be regarded as a great insult to himself. According to what he has always expected, he should continue to sprint towards the strongest hero, and Midoriya is always looking up to his back as a small admirer. But just now, the ball thrown by Midoriya was like a ruthless palm of reality, and it slapped him in the face. To be honest, it really hurt. He can't forgive Midoriya for deceiving him, and he still doesn't know how many years of deception has lasted. Even he suspected that the way Midoriya showed himself every time he showed it in front of him was actually what he pretended to be. But just as he suppressed the fire of anger burning in his heart, what did he hear? He actually heard that Midoriya was not afraid of himself, but he was afraid of hurting himself, so he let himself be bullied. This sentence, like a pot of pitch black oil, directly made the anger in his heart break through the blockade of reason and rush straight to his mind in an instant, and his eyes were even bloodshot, looking terrifying. What did you just say? Huh? Shang Ming glanced at him, without any intention of stopping, and replied casually, what I said, remember it yourself. Quote. It's really interesting, is it a habit to bully Midoriya, thinking that everyone has to be afraid of him? This made him more and more disgusted with Bang Hao, a gangster who likes bullying, relying on his strong personality to show face to people everywhere, even if he is only a 15-year-old boy, he is a little too much, right? Seriously, if it weren't for the fact that this was a school, Shangming might not be able to help but teach this guy a lesson, so that he would never dare to bring the gangster habits from outside into the campus again. Look for death. Seeing Shang Ming ignoring himself so much, when Shang Ming was about to pass by his side, his heart was full of tyranny because he was deceived, and he could no longer hold back the impulse in his heart and punched Shang Ming in the cheek. But the funny thing is that under such anger, he didn't even choose to use his personality. I don't know if it means that he still has a trace of rationality, or if it is just his unintentional move. Kamiaki. As soon as the ear lang on the side screamed, he heard a bang, and he saw that it was Tai Jie who grabbed Bang Hao's right fist. I saw Tai Jie at this time, his face was gloomy and terrible, he pinched the fist of Bang Hao who tried to take it back. Well, without using his personality, he simply had to fight for the strength in his hand. It was obvious that Bang Hao was not Tai Jie's opponent at all. Boy, don't be too arrogant. Not everyone will let you everywhere like that, Green Valley. But hearing this, Bang Hao's mood became even worse, and he stared at Tai Jie's eyes viciously. You said that you were letting me for a long time. At the same time, special sweat began to secrete from his palms. At this time, Iida Tenya in front of him ran over quickly, and then pressed Bang Hao with one hand and Tai Jie's hand with the other, and loudly persuaded, what are you doing? We are all classmates, don't fight. But seeing that the two of them didn't mean to let go at all, they warned directly, if you let Aizawa Bandao know that you are fighting, have you thought about the consequences? Alright Tieja, let's go. Quote. Shangming shook his head, and then took Tai Jie, who let go, and Erlang, who was full of worry, walked past Bang Hao towards the teaching building. Damn. Bang Hao stared at the backs of Shangming and Tai Jie viciously. Since he won the three big children when he was a child, it was really the first time he had encountered such a person who dared to fight with him. Well, I have to say that he has not experienced various events. He is completely an extreme child who is spoiled by the people around him, and his so-called self-esteem is nothing more than the complacency accumulated in successes and praises with excellent talent. In general, Bang Hao's heart needs to continue to ferment until complacency turns into real arrogance. After returning to the classroom, Shengming didn't care about Banghao's affairs, but picked up the class schedule that had been placed on the desk. From this list, it seemed that there were only 6 classes in other subjects, while their hero department had a total of 7 classes. 4 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, 12:30 to 1:20 is the lunch break, and school ends at 4:10 in the afternoon. What made Shengming and the others speechless the most was that the other subjects only had 4 classes in the morning on Saturday, while their hero subjects needed to go to the 6th period. Well, it can be said that it was very strict. There is also a text written on it that under normal circumstances, the 4 classes in the morning are compulsory courses, that is, the 4 items of Chinese language, mathematics, science, and English, and the hero basic learning they are most looking forward to is in the afternoon. In other words, situations like today's will rarely happen in the coming days. Among these 4 compulsory courses, Shengming is most looking forward to taking science, because he has a lot of problems in electromagnetism and wants to consult a professional teacher. After all, it is not a good way to learn by always reading books alone. But when he finished his science course, Shengming was a little disappointed, because the knowledge taught by the teacher had nothing to do with electromagnetism. Therefore, after class, he asked the teacher when he would start teaching electromagnetism. Electromagnetism doesn't start to be taught in the 2nd year until the 2nd year. The professional hero, nicknamed Engineering Robot, explained honestly. 2nd grade. But I don't want to wait that long. Quote. Shengming shook his head, then looked up at the other party expectantly. Then teacher, can you teach me in advance? It's not that I don't want to teach you, it's that I simply don't have the time. The stout hero, who was in charge of teaching science, scratched his head embarrassedly, because in addition to teaching science, I am also responsible for all kinds of infrastructure in the school. That's it. That bothered. Quote. Shengming thanked him in disappointment, and then watched the science teacher walk out of the classroom, but just as he turned around and was about to return to his position, 8 million Bai suddenly asked, do you want to learn electromagnetism? Huh. Shengming looked at the plump beautiful girl suspiciously. You know electromagnetism? 8 million hundred showed a beautiful smile, then blurted out the terms of electrostatic field, static magnetic field, and changing electromagnetic field, and finally smiled in the unconscious eyes of the people around him. Although I am better at the knowledge of the structure of matter molecules, I also have some knowledge of electromagnetism. Quote. 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 Shengming glanced at 8 million hundred. Seeing that she didn't mean to joke, he began to hesitate in his heart, and then asked uncertainly, then are you willing to teach me? Okay. Unexpectedly, when 8 million hundred heard the word, teach, the whole person became excited, and his eyes flashed with a scorching light. Well, she loves to help her classmates and the people around her, especially when it comes to studying. Well, how about you come to my house after school to learn electromagnetism for 2 hours, and then come home at about 6? Proposed 8 million hundred with a happy face. Okay. Then please. Shengming naturally has no opinion. In fact, he really needs to enhance his knowledge of electromagnetism now. Developing moves is not something that can be imagined out of thin air with a pat on the head. In addition to constantly honing his skills, theoretical support is also particularly important, especially his personality of the thunder and lightning system. But he didn't see Erlang's brow furrow slightly, but she didn't say anything in the end. Just silently looked down at the class schedule she had already read, not knowing what she was thinking. Why are you unhappy? Chapter 39. At 4 o'clock, Class A ended school on time, which also represented the official end of Shengming and the others' first day in Xiangying. However, for some people, school does not mean that they will become idle, such as Shengming, Tetsu J, and of course, others may have their own things to work on. Shengming first called home and explained why he came home late, and then said goodbye to Tetsu J and Erlang, who seemed to be in a bad mood, in front of the Xiangying protective wall. Well, lead the way. Quote. Shengming withdrew his gaze from the backs of Tetsu J and Erlang, and then turned his head to look at the 8 million hundred who were eager to try. Well, this eldest lady is teaching for the first time in her life, and she is deeply excited, and for so many years, every time she has studied by herself beyond her peers. Now not only do I have the opportunity to communicate with people, but I can also be a teacher or something, which is simply unimaginable for 8 million hundred. Lead the way. 8 million hundred and one didn't understand what Shengming meant, and then immediately reacted, pointed to the black luxury car that was slowly approaching in the distance, and said with a smile, look, the car that came to pick us up has arrived. Ah, All right. Quote. Shengming shrugged his shoulders indifferently, it's just a car, and it's not like he doesn't have it, although the grade of the car is not at the same level. 40 minutes later, they arrived in a city in Aichi Prefecture, and Kamiaki, who had just opened the car door and walked down, scanned his surroundings speechlessly. Isn't it so proud? Shengming looked at this mansion that was bigger than his apartment, and didn't know what to say for a while. Although he had guessed that the family background of 8,000,000 was not ordinary, but he didn't expect it to reach this point. Well, don't think he's making too much of a fuss. Although he has been a human being in 2 lives, he has never seen a private mansion of this level. The Forbidden City is not counted. Any ordinary person who suddenly came to this kind of place that only exists in idle film and television dramas, to say that he has not been affected by a little is really nonsense. Let's go, I've got everything ready for the butler. Quote. 8,000,000 greeted, and Shengming, who was still standing still, was very much looking forward to teaching for a while. Well, here it comes. Shengming smiled helplessly, and then told himself in his heart, calm, he just came to ask for electromagnetism, don't care about the rest. However, he decided in his heart that he must check the situation of these 8 million families after he goes back. He doesn't believe in such a rich family, and there will be no information on the internet. Just as Shengming was sitting in the spacious and somewhat exaggerated hall, smelling the fragrance of the top black tea on the table, and concentrating on absorbing the knowledge that 8 million bai had taught him, his little friend Tetsu was also sweating in the judo hall. Bang! Again, Taijie slammed the plank, probably this time he was thrown harder, and he didn't stand up immediately like he had done before, and his eyes were full of dazzling lights on the ceiling. Not far from Tetsu-J, Guro Daimon, who was only 2 meters tall and dressed in a white judo suit, stepped on the custom-made clogs under his feet and asked calmly, "What, are you ready to give up?" Quote. No, it's not. Taijie struggled to stand up with his arms propped up, and then looked at his teacher with some depression. I just wanted to ask, when will you start teaching me judo? He does feel very sad now. Since he came here, he has been falling, and being thrown again. Even if he is playing with senior brothers of the same age, he is also responsible for the sandbag that was fallen. What about the various throwing skills that are good? You don't even understand why you were thrown, and you still want to learn how to fall people. Damon knew Tetsu very well, he had seen too many of these children over the years. Think about it, when you were falling, did you feel the action of the person who fell you, and did you think about how to reduce the pain when you were fallen, and even thought about how to counter the opponent's action? Quote. Taijie bowed his head and fell silent. You've been thrown blindly until now, and you're not thinking at all. Quote. Daimon Sensei's expression gradually became serious, but his tone was still so calm. Do you think that fighting skills are what they are? Are they fixed moves when you play games, or do you think that as long as you learn the routines, you can perform them step by step in battle? You remember, good martial arts are born from constant thinking. Feel my movements, look at your movements, that's what you're supposed to do right now. Once you have comprehended the idea of being thrown, you can start to learn how to wrestle people, and that will be a topic that you will need to study for the rest of your life. Taijie's originally depressed heart was instantly activated by these words, and he seemed to have turned back into that hot-blooded iron boy again, and the divine light in his eyes was different from before. Daimon Sensei. After saying that, without saying a word, he pounced directly, but this time his eyes began to observe Guro Daimon's movements, especially the extremely thick arms. Shengming, don't you want to be the strongest Thunderbolt hero? Then I, Taijie Che Tai Future, must be the strongest hardcore hero. Taijie roared in his heart. Although he and Shengming haven't known each other for a long time, they have a deep understanding of each other's excellence, so they have a strong sense of urgency. If the gap between partners is too big, can it continue? Perhaps, but he didn't want to bet on it. If there is a terrifying and powerful enemy in the future, he hopes that he can stand side by side with Shengming to face it, instead of praying with his eyes closed in the rear. If you can't do it, then what kind of partner is it? I don't agree with myself like this. That's it. Bang. The judo gym once again resounded with a heart-pounding smashing sound, but this time there was a bit of struggle in the sound. Shizuoka Prefecture. Dressed in a male school uniform, Shang Lang Shang. Future. At this time, the song of Super Electromagnetic Cannon came from the backpack, and Erlang casually opened the bag, took out a white mobile phone, and then swiped it on the screen. What's wrong, Kazama? It's nothing, I just want to ask how you are doing in Shangying. A young man's voice came from the phone, which was extremely gentle. Chapter 40. It's okay. Erlang's mind once again reappeared with the scene of 8,000,000 inviting Shangming to her house, which made her feel irritable again. Yes. The wind on the other end of the phone moved, and he immediately heard that Erlang was in a low mood, which made his originally soft eyes flash with anger. Could it be that Erlang was bullied by Shangying? This thought made this boy with blue hair feel even more regretful that he was not admitted to Shangying, and it would be nice if he had devoted more energy to his studies before. However, he didn't expose Erlang's lies, and directly changed the topic with a smile and began to talk about what Erlang liked, hoping to make her forget the unknown unpleasantness. By the way, have you seen that Shangming electric? Kamime. What's wrong? Erlang frowned, she wanted to hang up her little phone call now. It looks like you've forgotten about it. Kazama Yundong said with a smile, didn't you say that you wanted to form a band with Kamido before, but I'm waiting for your news. He is very supportive of this idea, because in this way, even if he is not in the same school, he can always get along with Erlang, and he himself is very appreciative of Shangming's music, which he thinks is a good thing to kill two birds with one stone. The band. For some reason, when Erlang heard this word, a faint flame bloomed in his originally sluggish eyes. If you form a band with Kamime, can you be together all the time? In fact, she didn't know what was wrong with her, why she had to be with Shangming, she just didn't like Shangming and 8,000,000 alone for some reason. I'll ask Shangming tomorrow. Okay, don't forget it this time, you can take me to meet him then. The blue-haired boy teased. Don't worry, you won't forget it. Erlang nodded seriously, then hung up the phone, and then flipped the screen to Shangming's phone number. Although she said that she would talk to Shangming about it tomorrow, she wanted to call Shangming right now, but he should still be learning from the 8,000,000 now. She hesitated, because she didn't want to disturb Shangming. Judging from Shangming's performance before, he attached great importance to the study of electromagnetism, so when he saw the time displayed on the mobile phone, he finally turned off the screen. I'd better tell him tomorrow in person. 7 o'clock in the evening. Kamina, who had gained a lot from 8,000,000, had already taken the Shinkansen to Saitama, and 8,000,000 was also looking at the small whiteboard full of electromagnetic formulas with a satisfied face. It's good to hurry up to tomorrow, hehehehe. But when she thought of the absorption speed that Shangming had just shown, she became a little distressed. It seems that the accumulation of knowledge in electromagnetism should be accelerated, otherwise if it continues like this, I will have nothing to teach him in a few days. Thinking of this, 8,000,000 Bai directly put down the crystal cup in his hand, and instructed the old butler who was standing respectfully behind him, help me carry the book on electromagnetism to the study. Yes, miss. On the other side, Shangming was leaning against the window, quietly thinking about the personality of 8,000,000. Well, he really likes this state of thinking silently alone, and more importantly, people are teaching themselves so hard, and he also has the meaning of giving back to each other. He may not be as knowledgeable as 8,000,000, but he feels that he has a wide range of knowledge, especially in the development of this ability, and he is still confident to provide some help. Personality name creation, can make any object, well, can only be a dead thing, living to exist. If you look at it from this point alone, this sexual ability is indeed very high-end, and it may even be stronger than Emi Yashiru's infinite sword system. But as I said before, no matter how wonderful and powerful the personality in this world, there will be one or several limitations, and the first limit of creation is the blue amount limit. Her ability must be at the cost of her own fat, and the more complex and large the item, the more fat it will consume. Therefore, if she uses her personality wantonly regardless of her own situation, then 100% of her body will have a big problem. Well, what happens if a person is without fat? Secondly, it is necessary to have a certain understanding of the structure of the manufactured object, and the deeper the understanding of it, the smoother the manufacturing process. Well, if the former limitation can be solved by happy fattening, then the latter requires a certain innate IQ, although I don't want to say so, but I have to admit that learning also depends on talent. Therefore, if this sex is not on the body of 8,000,000, then an ordinary person will be able to make some tissues or something after a lifetime. In general, the personality of 8,000,000 is really the same as her family background, which is outrageous at the high end. But why does this ability give me a sense of incompatibility with the word, create? Kasumi pondered this sexual ability, and after a moment realized the key to it. If there are only these effects, then the ability should not be called creation, but manufacturing, because she can only make things that are known, or exist, with specific numerical information. The reason is simple: what is creation? Innovation and the creation of new things can be called creation. But 8,000,000 obviously can't do this. For example, if he tells the other party the appearance and ability of the golden holy clothes, can she create it? Obviously, it can't be done. Or rather, she can't do it now. Thinking of this, Shang Ming's eyes lit up. Could there be another possibility? That is, the personality of 8,000,000 is indeed creation, but because she is too young and her strength is too weak, she can only achieve the effect of manufacturing. If this speculation is true, then the potential of 8,000,000 is unimaginable. Perhaps the essence of this nature requires not a simple understanding of the molecular structure of matter, but a greater understanding of the world. Whether it is or not, Shangming has already decided to have a good relationship with 8,000,000. What, he is too snobbish. I'm sorry, he's an adult, long past the age when he decided that friendship should be free of impurities. Besides, he didn't have any malicious intent, he just valued the potential of the other party and raised his status in his heart by a few notches. Don't admit it, everyone will have a certain amount of close relatives and estrangement when treating friends around them, and there can never be absolute equality, unless you only have one friend. This guess should be told to the 8,000,000, as soon as possible, well, just tomorrow. Quote. Shangming looked at the night scene that was constantly passing by at high speed. He really liked this world more and more, especially after he got involved with Xiangying. What he experienced and saw was something that made him feel excited. Who doesn't yearn for this kind of life that looks forward to tomorrow every day? Who doesn't like it? Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories, and never miss out on a great listen.